and then we'll see if the audio is doing audio things where the audio is. There should be some people already watching, but I don't know. Audio thing. Okay, that works. Somebody speak words real quick.
I hope my mic is still watching.
But I don't know. Audio thing. Okay, that works. Somebody.
Hello. Words.
Should be fine then. It's going to be somewhat jumbled at the beginning, but I want to make sure that sometimes I get nervous that, like, because the thing is, OBS has a desktop audio slider, like a desktop audio levels slider and levels monitor, and it also has a mic and aux level slider and thing. So, like, sometimes I feel like both are on and active, and like only one is, and it's like it turns out that like either I or my guest was inaudible for the past like fucking 7 minutes, or like the audio will be fucked up and I just can't hear it because obviously I can't do that while doing desktop audio. It's very jank. It fucked up. I had Stefan Kinsella on my stream like years ago, and the stream was just absolutely jacked because I had two different sources of audio playing his audio. And so his audio sounded like a robot, and it was garbage, and I felt like shit about that. And it destroyed what could have been a completely awesome stream. Yeah.
Yeah, I like him.
I like certain things about him.
So is it, wait, channel?
Yeah, it's buried in the depths of this channel. It's like, it's fine. You can still sort of understand it, but it's nowhere near as good as it could have been if rookie mistakes were made. And I wasn't even a rookie. Like, I've been in this game for a significant enough period of time that I should have known better, but so that's what like, you could just sum up the entire experience as so anyway, fucking casual conversation to start the stream with. With that in mind, this is the latest edition of Real Libertarians, 8.75, because I keep on adding like another half thing. It's going to be like de-exponentializing into oblivion with the Principles Roundtable segment of it. Also, hello LJ, you have popped in. So we've got
hello.
we have let me count the numbers. We've got 6 people in addition to me, and should be a relatively good stream, I think. And I've invited more people, so we'll see if we can get this to be a real Brady Bunch clusterfuck of different libertarians' ideas. Because that's what I want.
Hey,
is
my mic picking up? I'm
Yes.
sorry, testing.
Yeah,
okay,
you're fine.
Cool.
So I want this to be like a general discussion. We're going to start with like certain problems that it's sort of a venting bit, where we'll also be discussing like the principles around certain things that libertarians have been fucking up lately. And there's plenty of that. We'll do that for like an hour, and then once we're done venting and getting it off our chests, you know, getting our chest reduction therapy for our libertarianism affirming healthcare, we will be getting into actual like principles and solutions and best practices, and trying not to cunt it up. I have cunted things up before, as we have just described. So I'm going to let people introduce themselves. LJ wasn't on the last stream, so we'll get some intro from LJ first. Then we'll move to Bigfoot, Archie, Dennis, Rose, Hody. LJ. Who
Hello.
be you?
I am also known as Lizard Jesus. I am an ANCOM personally, specifically an EgoCom, and I do like put that into practice in my lifestyle. I live on a commune right now. Yeah, I take inspiration off of the works of Max Stirner, Peter Kropotkin, and I'm a big admirer of the way Nestor Makhno like organized his army during the Russian Revolution.
Cool. And Archie.
Greetings. So, yeah, longtime small L libertarian, former state chair, minarchist, very set in my ways unless someone can give me an actually convincing argument otherwise.
Bigfoot.
Hi, I am the Anarcho-Appalachian. I live in the woods as a cryptid that constantly fights the state incursions upon my land, and I hate the state in all its forms and all hypocrites. Try to find me.
Dennis.
Reinhold. I am a libertarian, not right libertarian, not left libertarian, just libertarian. And I've been doing this for 30-some odd years.
Rose.
Forms.
I'm Rose. You all know me by now. I'm a real libertarian. I've been one basically since I was born. Also a member of the LP New York, or the New York LP State Committee and the National Platform Committee.
Hody.
I'm Hody Chans. I'm with the Love First Christians. I love liberty. I love Jesus. And those two go hand in hand quite nicely.
And y'all already know I'm that fucking asshole with all the wrong opinions who ruins everybody's good time. So I'm here to do that with certain elements of the movement, as it were. So generally, the first bit of this is going to be some sort of venting of grievances about the way recent shit has been in libertarian circles. So there will be some of that, but there will also be a significant amount of discussions later on about solutions and how to best go about solving problems. So with all that being said, let's start with a thing that has come up in a variety of spaces because I put it there. There's a guy, because it was sort of requested that we start with this discussion before this, so I might as well. There's this guy who basically he's being shared around because he triggered the libs, and libertarians don't give a shit that this guy is a pedophilia supporter who thinks it's mental illness to wait till a chick is 18 to have sex and babies with her, who has drank his followers' blood by getting them to send him small vials of it, thinks exercise is bad for you and will kill you early, is the founder of the, according to him, I don't think this is true, the founder of the raw carnivore movement, and also thought Columbine was tight, and he stabbed 4 kids when he was in high school. So, of course, the right libertarians who are normally obsessed with saying that they love protecting children or whatever, shared this guy uncritically, not knowing who he was, and then kept him shared after they had been informed. So, yeah, that's a thing in this regard. Just to be very, very specific about where we're starting with this. I feel like that's a good place to jump off, because, there's a whole lot of people in liberty circles who will associate with positive filth, or say things that are positively vile, just because it triggers their opposition. And, yeah, that's a problem that I think we can really start delving into. So, anybody have any examples of this?
Well, I will say I think that people who have any sort of platform should be a little more careful with who they share. They should do some basic background checking to make sure they're not sharing someone who's a complete piece of shit. And to be honest, anyone who, pulls a stupid stunt like that guy did is probably an asshole. With that being said, though, I think it's a little unfair to make what come across as, generalizations about people who were simply liking or sharing the meme, because people just kind of offhandedly like and share things, and doesn't necessarily mean that, it's not necessarily a reflection of who they are as a person.
So, in this particular case...
there's where you have to be careful, because sometimes you'll see a quote or a meme or something from somebody's posted that actually makes sense, and you think this is a good thing, and you post it, and you find out the guy's a piece of shit, right?
Yep.
And
all the time.
that happens. The question is, what do you do when you find out, right? And that's where we get into the issue, in my opinion, because we find out certain people may have groomed their first wife, and then people continue to defend that because they like what other things that this person said, right? And want to continue to support him and be defensive of him. And so they spend all their time trying to defend that behavior, twisting themselves in knots to do so, instead of just saying, I don't approve, I don't agree with what this guy did, you know. And we could say, okay, it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. If he would just come out and say, I did this, I was wrong, and move on, we can move on from it. But that doesn't happen sometimes. So it really kind of, the company you keep does kind of define you in some way. But we have to be careful not to just tag everybody who's, you know, unknowingly shared some information from somebody they don't know. So I know somebody like a real good friend of mine. He's a completely great person, never has, you know, he's one of the best people ever, but he shared something from somebody who's like, you really shouldn't have shared that from him, because he's, you know, but once he found out, he removed it and moved on. So that's how you react to it. You don't just continue to defend, you know, the person as opposed to what they said in that specific instance.
And to be clear, there's a thing that I think a lot more people should understand and know, and it's the sunk cost fallacy. It shouldn't matter logically how much time or effort or whatever you've sunk into something or somebody. If, like, you find out that they've done something wrong, or if you find out that a proposition is illogical or whatever, you shouldn't say, well, maybe if I just put a little bit more into it, a little bit more, then it'll be great, or it'll be true, or it'll be reasonable or ethical. Like, basically just like, I've already put so much into this, so now I'm wedded to the concept, and I'm not going to walk away or criticize it or whatever. And this is so true in a lot of these political circles, because it's like, but I said Steven Crowder was based so many times, and I shared so much of his content, and I made memes about him, and changed my mind, and that means that I can't talk about how he's an abuser to his wife and his co-workers, and how he's suing an ex-co-worker for talking about how abusive he was, and but Steven... Or, like, you know, when you find out that Matt Walsh was holding diaper backyard wrestling with a guy with a swastika tattoo that also worked for him, and that he also has a long history of, like, pedophilic comments and saying, like, 16-year-old girls are adults. Or when you find out that, you know, Nick Fuentes, who's already a piece of shit, wants a 16-year-old, pure, innocent, untouched, whatever, clean, pure wife so that he can have sex with her. When he's 30, you know, little things like this, you start to really find out a lot of things about people when you find out what they don't want you to talk about. And that's a thing.
I got one for y'all.
Yeah, go for it.
So this isn't exactly recent, but it's kind of relevant to the topic. A few months ago, James Freeman, the cop watcher on YouTube, came out in public on Facebook trying to defend Russell Brand for fucking that 16-year-old in Europe.
Really?
Like, publicly, yeah. To my significant other. This was like maybe 3 or 4 months ago when all the allegations came out on Russell. Yeah, it really sucked, because fucking James Friedman was the one of the main people that actually got me into, like, activism and stuff, and it was really disheartening to have to fucking, like, let him go. But, you know, sometimes you fucking learn good lessons from bad people, so.
Well, that's another thing. Like, under what circumstances is it okay to, like, say, like, because I feel like, you know, you can play this game with pretty much anyone who's had any influence in any political ideology. Like, they've all had their shares of good takes and bad takes, so... I mean, you see these sorts of, you know, disingenuous arguments all the time in political circles. Oh, this guy who you're quoting, he said some other shit that was, you know, that were really bad takes. So, therefore, what you're saying is invalid. It's like, no, I feel like you can take, you know, ideas or lessons from people, and then you can also say, okay, but they were clearly imperfect. They got this, this, and this wrong, but they got this, this, and this right. Like, I feel like that goes for literally any political theorist.
I
Sure.
give two great examples. The first one would be I spent a decade defending Ron Paul for the racist newsletters, right?
Well,
Finally
yeah,
just came-
when he brings
It
that
finally
up,
just came to the
because he said a lot of, like, most people who were brought into the libertarian movement from him did so because of his takes on things like war and central banking. And then, yeah, there's always that one asshole, though, who has to be like, oh, but my newsletters. Okay, no,
the
they're
newsletters are
not
important.
praising him for the newsletters. They're praising
him.
him for his takes on things like imperialism or the drug war.
Right.
Okay,
I mean,
so
I can say that what he said about those things are good, but I can also say that I really oppose the fact that he went down that path, and it was a political tactic that he was using. It wasn't necessarily that he's a racist. It was just that he was taking a political tactic to try to win over a certain group of people. But another great example, in my opinion, is Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson said a lot of great stuff, did a lot of great things as far as in trying to push the world into a more liberal ideology, the Enlightenment, that sort of thing, John Locke. But he was also, fell in love with his slave, who was actually his dead wife's half sister, right? So he fell in love with her because of that, and ended up having this affair with her, even though she was his slave and had no say so against it. It was a horrible, terrible thing he did. He owned slaves, which is another bad thing. All this stuff he did, but you can also say he pushed a great view of what we should be as a people, and we should listen to that side of things, but accept the fact that he was also a flawed person who did a lot of bad things too.
At the same time, so two things. First off, I have to drop this meme on you in case any of you don't already know about this meme. The meme is milkshake duck, and I think it's a great meme because what the meme says is it's related to a tweet from an account called Pixelated Boat. And it's like, the whole internet loves milkshake duck, a lovely duck that drinks milkshakes. 5 seconds later, we regret to inform you the duck is racist. And it's like that with so many of these figures where, like, and so, for instance, a milkshake duck example that came up recently was this Wonka experience that was a catastrophe, AI bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And then you find out, not only was it all bad, but the reason that it gets worse, because the guy who played Wonka, the reason this guy hired this guy was because he was completely uninvested in his project. He didn't have to vet these people at all. He didn't look into them to make sure that they're good people or would be good for his brand, because he didn't give a shit. He didn't give enough of a shit to even make his own materials. He just AI'd his way into the marketplace of ideas. And then once he sold all these tickets and hired this guy to play Wonka, he didn't give a shit that the guy was guilty of improper conduct with one of his students at a theater school, and he was in a relationship with a minor female who later talked about the fact that he groomed her on TikTok. That guy got milkshake ducked. That's the term for it, because he was later proven to be a massive shitbag. After a whole bunch of people were like, "Oh, but he's so endearing on his TikToks about the Willy Wonka AI experience," and now somebody like me, who was the source of a lot of people's information on this, because I guess they saw my tweet and screenshots of it, and they were Britishing in my comments. They were very much just proof. But 16 is the age of fuck you. And they were all coping and seething and malding, and no. And also, so that's the thing. Milkshake ducking is the thing. And then the second thing is much shorter that I'll say, is that if you're looking for a Thomas founder, it's Thomas Paine over Thomas Jefferson any day. He said basically the same stuff, but he wasn't a cunt. So.
I think part of what we need to talk about is the point is sometimes the evil with this. Like, because I think with Ron Paul, as Rose said, most people love the anti-imperialism, love the anti-war. That's why most people got into it. Most of the time, you have to get told about the newsletters, and then you go, "Oh, that does suck." Oh, Ron Paul thankfully has condemned those newsletters, so we should be able to move forward. For some people, though, they don't like that Ron Paul even condemned the newsletters. They say, "What's wrong about it?" Or, "I didn't see anything that's wrong with the newsletters." Because that was part of the point, right? Like that they enjoyed the evil. In this case, with the situation we're talking about a guy who went up to a bunch of vegans at a protest. Sorry, got that cold. Went up to a vegan protest and just started eating raw meat in front of them. And we libertarians shared this and we're like, haha, this guy's so based and awesome. Look, the act itself was being a douchebag, right? So what we're doing then is we're saying the douchebaggery is the point, as opposed to being like, if this guy with the same background had been stood up to big agricultural companies and just being like, this is inhumane to these animals or something like that, and made some big performative protest about it and shared that, you might be able to be like, okay, the guy cares about animals. Oh crap, he stabbed his classmates and he's also like a pedo. Sick. Like, I'm out. I didn't know that stuff. Or you could go like, hey, listen, I think libertarians mostly have these people with like serious drawbacks. Noam Chomsky, Jonathan Haidt, where you just be like, he gets it. Oh, he doesn't get it. But like when they don't get it, you kind of go, okay, let's scissor that off. Let's surgeon that out and keep the part that's good. This is something that libertarians should be great on because we're supposed to be individuals, right? So the advantage should be we don't idolize anybody. We don't take their entire doctrine. I can say, hey, this 10% of Proudhon is awesome, and this 90% was total cancer, and let's set the total cancer to the side and focus on the 10% and get that ball rolling further down. It's just that for some people, that cancerous part is the point. And I think that that's kind of the issue that's come to the forefront right now with this, is this cancerous, haha, look, I'm a jagoff. I pooped my pants and the liberals thought it smelled, as well as some normal people thought it smelled as well, is not a good tactic.
Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of that behavior comes from not only like a lack of critical thinking skills, but a lack of self-awareness. Because like a lot of people who act like that, I don't think that they fully realize like the social consequences that they end up reaping with that behavior. They might have like a rough understanding, but definitely not a full understanding. Like they don't see how it's hurting libertarianism. And honestly, that kind of behavior is something that you see from statists and like not actual libertarians. Like real libertarians don't do that. They do what you were talking about just now. So.
Right. No, my response to a vegan will be, okay, they may be, insufferable to talk to, but they have every right to organize an event for vegans and talk about how vegans are morally superior and jerk each other off. They're like, so yeah, no, my knee-jerk response to a guy doing something like that is, wow, what a complete asshole. He could have just, avoided going and just not talked to them, not, gone there to deliberately antagonize them. No, there are people who are, you can tell, like, they hate their opposition more than they care about their actual principles, if they even have principles to begin with.
Can I throw a bomb?
Go.
This happened in 2017, actually. Interesting thing where the day after Charlottesville, the chairman of the Libertarian Party called out a couple libertarian podcasters and think tank writers and said, maybe we shouldn't be platforming these people, right? And their defenders went crazy and started defending them, saying, no, they're just listening to them. They're not platforming. They're not agreeing with what they had to say. Blah, blah, blah. And it ended up creating a whole caucus out of that one.
Well, I don't oppose talking to people that I disagree with. Like, so, yeah. Because I have, like, it is ridiculous how people will get accused of, being a supporter or platforming someone because they once, appeared on a podcast with them or debated them or something to that extent. No, what happened though, like, Sarwalk was the chair at the time, and he tried to say, like, his knee-jerk response to something like the 2017 Charlottesville March was to be like, oh, we have to make it absolutely clear that we're not associated with these people, because otherwise our detractors are going to try to lump us in with them. Okay, one, it does not matter. People who oppose libertarians are going to find a way to call us, fascists, racist, white nationalists, whatever the fuck is the current buzzword, regardless of what we do. So trying to, I don't know, cuck for them is just, it's just a bad look. Like,
well, isn't it a bad look?
Honestly,
finish
there will
a
be
speech with. I mean, isn't it a bad look to finish a speech with the blood and soil line? I mean, isn't it also a bad look to have Chris Cantwell on your show and tell him that you admire him to the point you wish you could say the things he did, but you can't because you would lose your audience?
What was the context? He was libertarian, and okay, again, people will take one quote that's out of context and pretend.
I'm not taking it out of context. I've listened to the podcast. He was talking.
I have too, and that's not what was being said. Okay, he was not saying, I wish I could say, blah 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 about Jews or black people or whatever the fuck is being insinuated.
And what is it he couldn't say? What is it that he couldn't say that Cantwell was saying that would lose him his audience?
Yeah, this was years ago, but this was years ago, so I don't remember the exact conversation.
Right. Another thing too is that all Nick Sarwark said was, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be giving these people that are known racists a platform.
Right.
That was it. I don't think there's something wrong with that. But it caused
I want to get a
to
point
start
in
claiming,
here before we move on too much. I want to say that a lot of times people will use the people who have sympathies or will just let these authoritarians into their space. Authoritarians will use that to their advantage to the fullest to corrupt and turn the community. I've seen them use that to turn hundreds of people at a time before.
So
that was what I wanted to get in there.
Sorry,
I would like to make a point, or at least make a statement. So I'm kind of on two minds about this in general, not about this with whatever podcast this was. I'm not really familiar with that, but in general, liberty spaces and people saying things that may or may not be problematic, and how do we support somebody with a spotty history, stuff like that. And my two minds are this. On one hand, you have a conversation that is philosophical in nature. And when you're having a conversation that is philosophical in nature, you have to detach yourself from the temporal location in which words were spoken in order to look at them from an objective humanist point of view throughout history. So in that context, we read things from Marx, we read things from Thomas Jefferson, from Thomas Paine, from Lao Tzu, right? And we read those things as they apply to our lives today as best as we can. We separate them from their temporal context, and we try to apply them to generalized human nature in order to arrive at greater philosophical truths that we can use to achieve liberty. In that context, I think it's totally fine to take anything that stands on its own, said by anybody, regardless of their history, past, or beliefs, and put those ideas forward. There's plenty of stuff that Mark said that I agreed with in outside of context. I just didn't agree with his underlying assumptions that led him to those conclusions. But on the other hand, we have a combination of media and of attention getting and social media and I guess entertainment in a sense when it comes to podcasts and stuff. And in those realms, when it comes to winning hearts and minds, not a philosophical, but an emotional conversation, we have to make sure that we don't close doors before we've even gotten within earshot of them. We need to make sure that we don't look as if we are unwelcome to those who are already on the fence, because our very unwelcomeness will push them off the fence onto the other side, because those libertarians are just assholes who only want to offend people and they don't care about anyone. They're completely selfish. So I can see where both sides are coming from.
Right, earlier today, I was up with tankies to, argue against the, current genocide going on of the Palestinians against some, rightoid moron who was being an apologist for it. And, imagine people taking, my interactions and those kinds of arguments out of context and be like, oh, Rose supports tankies. Yeah, it's so stupid, okay? I hate this dishonest bullshit tactic of saying, oh, you agreed with someone and praised them for saying the right thing in a certain context, so therefore you agree with them on everything.
And one
Yeah,
thing
that's
before
not the argument, though.
one thing before we move too far forward, Bryce, feel free to introduce yourself. Welcome.
Bryce, I'm a member of the I'm delegate for our national party.
Sorry,
the congressional
you be breaking up a bit.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the road, so forgive me for that.
That was a very Wisconsinite way to say that sentence. You can repeat though. Just.
So I'm a member of Wisconsin LP as a congressional District 3 rep for the executive committee, and I'm a delegate for national.
Cool. So, Archie, I believe you were going to start saying words.
Yeah, the argument isn't just that someone has someone on their show one time or something like that. And with Nick Fuentes, for instance, Dave has had him on multiple times. It's been on Dave's podcast. It's been on other alt-writers' podcasts. Ethan...
Ralph.
Thank you. Ethan Ralph, the Killstream dude, is an alt-right figure. Dave repeatedly has made it clear he will not condemn Fuentes.
I won't do that either. I'm sorry. If someone tells me to condemn someone, I'll tell them to go fuck themselves out of principle.
Condemn Stalin, then.
Okay, okay, I watched the debates. He argued, against. He argued against most of what Fuentes was saying in terms of things like.
No, he didn't.
Or being an authoritarian.
He gave virtually no pushback on Fuentes' key beliefs.
I watched the debate as well. And yes, there actually was a very little, if any, agreement on anything.
Uh-huh.
And the reason Dave went on that debate wasn't to try and convince Nick Fuentes of his beliefs. It was to try and poll people who may not be entirely sure of where they fall at of his beliefs. That was his whole reason for being on there.
Yeah, I don't buy it for a minute.
I'm sure you
That's
don't.
fine. You don't have to buy it. That's that's his claim. So I see proof otherwise. That's what I'll say.
In 2017,
if someone objects to that, again, I have people who I like as people, even though I find most, if not all, of their political takes to be, cringy. Yeah, if someone tells me, oh, well, you condemn this person that you consider a friend. No, I'm sorry, but I won't. And yeah.
Does Dave consider Nick a friend?
He said,
Dave considers Owen Benjamin a friend.
Yeah, and Owen Benjamin's a massively fascist piece of shit.
Talented kid and blah, blah, blah. And he's also said, I wish he wasn't such a statist and authoritarian and things along those lines.
So Dave has had a very long history flirting with very top alt-right figures. And in 2017, he substitute hosted for Gavin McInnes's podcast. Gavin had to go away, and so he asked Dave to sub in. Gavin McInnes is the founder of the Proud Boys. Who did Dave say he first thought of pulling on the podcast when he was asked to do this? Richard Spencer and Chris Cantwell.
That is a good point. But
not gonna lie,
that was
with my experience
2017.
with the Proud Boys, most of them are federal agents, or at least a very good portion of them are. So anybody who
I'm certain they are infiltrated by the feds, but I don't think they're mostly feds.
The Proud Boys, yeah, they are. The Proud Boys don't even exist anymore. Most of them got arrested, and their leader was literally a Fed informant.
Well, I don't trust anybody from the Proud Boys for a multitude of reasons.
Right. No, neither do I. But
and the other half is they still do exist. They're just not as prevalent as they were. Like the Proud Boys
It's a
were
joke. I would consider fascists. Like if it was a societal collapse, like I'd be worried because they're the kind of group that I would be worried about going full fascist. But like for the most part, they're not a threat.
Well, they're already full fascist. The reason
Some of them are actually training for physical confrontation during protests.
There's Patriot Front like sects going off into the woods and like training for civil conflict and stuff. I don't think that they're necessarily not a threat.
And like the thing
Some
is
of
like
them are actually kind of dangerous individuals.
the reason I know that they're still active is because like when I was going against several groups affiliated with the Humanity for Peace rally, another like loosely MECOC affiliated anti-war rally, which just can't get rid of the pro-war people. The rally in question was partially sponsored by a bunch of Strasserites, and the Strasserites were like running these Telegram rooms that I like spelunked into, like the filthy little caves they are. And those caves were full of cross posts from active Proud Boy groups that were like still around and still doing shit. So they are very much still a thing. They just don't get talked about in the news as much. And that's the other half of this. Like a lot of these like real and active threats don't like the reason that the reason that they're considered like real and active threats is because the news media is talking about them, and because like they've got a lot of play on social media and they're the new hotness of trending blah blah. And then when they've got the new boogeyman that you're really supposed to be looking at, it'll like take attention away from these people, but that doesn't mean they're gone. It means that they're no longer the new thing that you'll like trend really positively for talking about, you know? Like go ahead, Rose.
I don't know,
Oh, no. I said what I needed to.
I just think it's interesting that we start this conversation about how we should, distance ourselves from certain people because of their, at least, what they stand for and things like that. We should be able to identify that and call it out. Mm-hmm. And now we're around to defending a lot of it. So
I think we should distance ourselves from, certain people and certain ideas, definitely. But I also take serious issue with this practice of, making, insinuating that someone supports certain things because of who they're connected to. Like,
I'm not doing
you see this a lot. This guy agrees with
Tom Woods. I'm not saying Tom Woods. I'm not saying Tom Woods necessarily agrees with all that stuff. I'm just saying he can't. He was upset that he couldn't say those things, but he keeps having Chris on the show. It wasn't the last time he had him on.
Okay, I haven't followed since. So when was the last time he had Chris Cantwell on his show? Because
about a year ago, I believe. I can look it up.
What did they talk about?
It was recently. I don't remember. It was a while back, and I really just didn't want to support that type of thing. But it's still the case. I mean, it's like we can complain about, well, we shouldn't have to do this for the news media just to tell people that we're not affiliated with that. But you understand that's what it looks like in people's eyes. And if we're going to have a positive influence on people, we have to be able to say these things. Like a great example is when Timothy McVeigh blew up a bunch of kids and claimed to do it as a libertarian. The Libertarian Party had to come out and say, no, he's not a libertarian. Mm-hmm. And no, he's not affiliated with us, and we reject everything he stood for. Those are the types of things you have to do in a political environment because people need to know where you stand.
So you spend your entire life talking about individual rights and opposing things like bigotry and aggression. And then, some morons do something stupid like march down the street carrying tiki torches. And then you're being told, you have to go on record saying you're not like this. It's like, no. Anyone who has looked at any of my content knows what my positions are. Okay, I'm not gonna,
There's a reason why there's a reputation.
Rose, in the you're dealing with people that might not know who you are, though. So when people are coming to you and asking you to denounce abhorrent people, it might be because they don't know you, and a lot of people, frankly, don't have the time to research people.
Sure, but if they
But I will say that like this whole fucking exchange is highlighting real well why political parties are a bad idea, because people choose who they associate with, and within a political party that is no different. So you're always going to have split parties and internal issues if there is a political party.
Of course, well, I'm not going to argue there.
Yeah, and just real quick, before we go too much further, we've got Aaron Goss in the chat. Hello. Feel free to introduce yourself. You are muted currently, and no camera.
Hey, everybody. I'm currently eating supper, so I'm muted and got my camera off. But yeah, I can join shortly if
yeah, no problem.
If y'all would like me to. I'll be on in a little bit.
Yeah, we're talking general problems for the first like hour, probably a little bit more, since this subject is going on a bit, and then we'll be moving on to what the proposed solutions are and a variety of potential tactics and shit. So what were you gonna say, Dennis?
There's a reason why there's a perception in a lot of people who aren't libertarians and don't know much about libertarians, why they think libertarians are basically just racist. And that is because in the past we have courted racists. That was the whole idea behind the racist newsletters. There was a whole idea behind the idea of courting the old right that came out of Rothbard, Rockwell, and Paul in the early 90s when they were praising David Duke and calling for Pat Buchanan to be the president of the United States. They were doing so not because they were themselves racist, but because they knew that they could court those people who were with dog signals and dog whistles to get them to kind of join the movement. So now we have a whole bunch of people who have spent a lot of time being told that they have a place in the liberty movement that are abhorrent people. And those people get noticed, those people make noise and talk about it. And so there is a perception out there that has to be fought against, whether we like it or not, just to make sure that that is stated to people who don't know what we are and what we stand for. They just think that we're throwing a bunch of words at the paper to try to trick people into liking our movement. And we're really just racist in the background because of that. And that's what Nick was trying to do after the Charlottesville riot was rally was just making sure that he got it out there publicly to say, we don't stand for this. And I think that is a positive thing to do every so often, just to make sure that we make it clear that we do not stand for that. And when you have people who are trying to fight against that, to make it easier for people who are accused of being racist by people who may not know what they're talking about, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but there's some unsavory people who we end up getting associated with, and we have to be able to call them out when we do. And if we don't, then we get tagged with that association, whether we like it or not.
So, and three things real quick before people respond, because there's plenty to respond to there. Hello to Scientific Libertarian in chat. Hello to Mike in chat. Hello to Kent in chat. We've got some comments to respond to here, and I will get to those after a little bit of responses to this. If you've got something to say in chat and you want that to potentially get discussed in the episode, feel free. I am one of the people who directly responds to chat. I'm not one of the cunts who just tries to brush it under the rug. So say words. And Rose, you've got words to say.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you've watched any of these previous streams, I have specifically said how, what a stupid strategy it is to try to align ourselves with right-wingers, because it never ends well. Okay, they will give service to some of our principles, such as individual liberty, until they have power, and then, they have certain cultural hang-ups they have a very hard time letting go of. However, again, though, I don't know, I just kind of take issue with this idea that we have to constantly reassure people who were never going to support us in the first place that we're not these things that they think are bad.
So
people were never going to support us in the first place. What are we doing? Because at that point we have a very minor ideology that nobody will agree with or support. So we might as well just go do something else.
So I don't think so.
I believe that the majority of people in this country believe what in the Enlightenment ideas that Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, James Madison were all espousing. I believe that's a lot of people believe in that stuff. They just They just get to the but. So when I talk about, hey, we should let people be free to live their lives as they choose, as long as they're not harming anybody else. Everybody I talk to and say that to say, yeah, I agree with that, but, and they all have a but. And if we can just talk them out of that but and say, here's why that's not going to work, or here's why it is an issue for that, we can win them over. But then they go and look and they see these guys, these chuds over here spouting all this bullshit, and then they go, "Oh, you guys, I'm going to back away." And that happened. This has happened for 30 years that I've watched it happen. So I am all for. I will denounce anybody who does not espouse that basic political idea. If they go against it in any way, I will speak out against it because it has to be done. It's just the way it is.
Like,
By all means,
I think that's an important part of like political duty as well.
You condemn this thing. There's that insinuation there that it's the implication that there's any doubt, and I think that's what people found insulting following the Charlottesville thing.
So
because it should have been obvious to anyone who knew anything about Libertarians that those are not our people. So it's
that's the problem.
I would
it's
be
not
insulted if someone told me you have to make it absolutely clear that you're not one of these people, because I'd be like, okay, anyone who knows anything about my philosophy already knows this.
So three things.
When
real
you found
quick.
the League of the South,
Real quick, just because this, making sure that things are copacetic. Aaron, do you have headphones? Because I'm hearing some feedback, like just little chirps.
I apologize. I do not have headphones, but I will mute myself when I'm not speaking.
Okay, all right. That might fix the problem. I think they might have been coming from you. If they weren't, I'll let you know. But the second thing is you haven't said anything. So after I get done saying these words, feel free to also say some words. The third thing is try to avoid talking over, because like Rose has started speaking multiple times and been talked over, so I just want to make sure that that doesn't happen. I want to make sure that everybody has their say. That's the point of the stream. So then the third thing, so I guess after that, if there is something you want to contribute, Aaron, feel free to say words. Archie was going to, if not.
No, it's funny that we say that we don't need to clarify that the Charlottesville people weren't us, because I feel like there's a lot of infiltration of the Charlottesville ideology in the LP, and I think it definitely needs clarification that wasn't us.
And like, I can agree to that in a lot of ways, just to be clear, but I can also see where Rose is coming from. So just to give my 2 cents here. The first thing is, there's absolutely a need for clarification in certain ways, because there's absolutely certain ideological cohesions. The thing that comes to mind primarily is the thing that really like caught media attention is these fucking these nerds. Honestly, a lot of them are nerds, and that's one of the things that's hilarious to me, is that they pretend that they're the people who shove people in lockers, but they would be getting shoved in the lockers. And they're very, very clearly like the sort of, and like, they were screaming, they will not replace us, Jews will not replace us, etc., etc. And that's the primary thing that really caught the media attention, is because it was a bunch of white guys screaming about replacement. And you got a lot of that in right libertarian circles now. You got a lot of people in right libertarian circles bleating like sheep about the fucking border problem because migration and replacement and militarize, put the troops there, shoot brown people, we're doing it, we got it, we're back, we're so back. And it's like, no. And so we do have some work to do there, perception-wise, in order to say that those people are pieces of shit. But as somebody who has routinely been called a Nazi, despite persistently speaking out against them, I'm also of the opinion that it's also beholden to those people who we're trying to convince to be open-minded. And that if they aren't at least a little bit open-minded to try and ask us individually what we believe, rather than lumping us in with a group of people, they're gonna be cunts about it, and they're probably not here to listen. They're probably here to back their political like position, team, group, influencer, blah 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 blah. They're bad faith. They're going to take whatever positions are necessary in order to oppose you. So, as somebody who is on similar sides to everybody here, literally, because I see the need to call things out, but I also see the need in politics in general, and libertarianism especially, to be good faith. There's a certain room for a significant amount of like pushback on both sides, to the point where realizing that there are certain issues with both, realizing that there's an issue with perception, and we should say, hey, Nazi punks, fuck off. You know, RFK Jr., fuck off. We can say all these things positively because we're on the page of that. We can also say, talk to me. Find out what I believe. The water's fine. And actually try to come to an understanding, because if you're not willing to, then conversation with you is largely probably going to be unproductive anyway, and I should probably seek conversation with those who are going to be more productive about it, because we're all going to die someday, and time is limited, and we should use it to the best of our capability. Lizard had his hand up. I guess we're doing hands. That works for me. Lizard, Dennis.
I just would like to say that denouncing in politics is also a wonderful opportunity to educate people and help them build nuance, and teach them like what like libertarians would believe concerning the matter, you know?
Reasonable.
It's not, I think that sometimes there are bad faith examples where there is insinuation in the background and it's kind of an unspoken attack on, you know, your person. But more often than not, it's just people trying to learn, I feel. And I think that it's important to educate people. So
I'll do it all the time. I'm like, this is not a libertarian take, and here's why, and here's the actual libertarian position. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Dennis.
Just when we get back into people should know what I stand for. I've got 30 years of writing. I've been doing this for a long time. And I was told in 2017 and 2018, and since, basically every day since, that I am not a real libertarian and I do not belong in the party, and I am expected to leave in order for the party to succeed. This was by Michael Heiss. This was by his cronies. This was by all the people, a lot of people in the Mises Caucus will see me, call me a left libertarian just because I don't believe exactly like they do, especially on open borders. That's usually the key, because that's usually I can tell when someone's a right-wing populist and not a libertarian.
Real quick, let me just throw something in there, because I have to say it. If you're a left libertarian, come to come to these panels. If you're a left libertarian, follow. I will follow back. I'm very sympathetic to the left, and if somebody says that I'm a communist sympathizer, I say, fuck you, I am. Eat shit, bitch. That's my point. Like, yes, I will support a lot of communist positions and left libertarians, and if you don't like it, fuck off. You're probably more affiliated with like the Nazi fasci side. Go ahead, Dennis. I had to say that just because left libertarians are often based.
Yeah. My point is, though, is that I was a member of this party for 30 years. I've given a lot to it, and I was suddenly told that in order to protect and make the party political and successfully political, I had to be removed from the party. I had to be denounced. I had to be ejected, as it were, from people who I know me have been said this, and it's very frustrating to then say, well, we need to kick out all the Nazis and denounce them. Oh no, we can't do that. So that tells me a lot about the people who were saying that stuff and what they really stand for.
Yeah, I don't know who enabled that, but I put it back. The general.
I still see it.
It's still showing us in this weird together mode thing.
Yeah, it says together mode has been enabled.
I mean, it's not a bad picture of all of us, but
I absolutely love it.
Well, I changed it back.
Screenshot.
I think the one thing that would help in this conversation to not only increase the ease by which people can see the difference between real and fake libertarianism, but also to reduce the amount of defending that we actually have to do is, if we want a real bottom unity movement, a real libertarian, small L, either side of the aisle, like freedom is our biggest priority and our only, true priority, because freedom comes all other benefits. In that sense, if we want to have that movement be taken seriously and to be stopped being compared to these other extremist sides, we need to have, I hate to say it, but some kind of fucking manifesto, something that you can actually be like, okay, 99% of the people who are right-minded about this agree with the text in this book. So if you don't, then you're probably fucking off the wall.
And hey, mine should be done by the end of the year, and it's a Unity manifesto, and I'm having like multiple books that I want to thread together and finish before the end of 2025. So we'll see if that ends up actually happening, or if it's another one of my things that I say it's gonna happen and then it doesn't. Archie,
I'm not sure how that could happen, given our current.
Actually, like writing, like, because I spend a ton of time writing stupid responses on Facebook, and I'm like, maybe I should actually like write articles or something and be less of a waste of time.
And hey, we've got like, plenty of room at Anarch Unity. If y'all want an account, feel free to sign up, and I will be publishing yours, Bigfoot, relatively shortly. Archie, then Aaron.
I think Cody had his hand up before me.
Oh, well, it's fine. We could do it either way.
Yeah, I guess I'll go, but yeah, the order doesn't matter. I guess for one part is I want to agree with Rose quite a bit, because in general, first of all, I don't get a lot of opportunity because we spend a lot of time talking about the LPMC on this show, so it's tough. So I do want to take this opportunity to be like, condemning people does get old and tiresome and difficult, because yeah, everybody's got a problematic position. We probably all in this chat will change our minds on something. By virtue of being a libertarian, you probably change your mind in your entire life, which means you're able to change, which differentiates us from many people who aren't interested in politics and just want to take what their parents gave them and continue on. All the more persuasive we have to be. So I understand that it's like, condemning people can suck, and just as people is outright. So if you want to make it your policy to not condemn people and just be like, I'm just going to condemn the specific ideas that they have, then that's fine. To be like, hey, the League of the South went south. I do condemn these terrible things, like when it went bad, right? Let me be specific. Do I condemn every person I worked with, every friendship that I made? No. Sure. No, yeah, don't have to do that. I am gonna. I talk with Jacob Weingrad often. I'm going on his show later. I've been on his show before. We have many conversations. Everybody knows that I think his views on homosexuality, the trans issues, he's wrong on the border now. So I think all that's reprehensible, right? Like, and I'll say it. I have no issues saying it. If somebody's like, condemn Jacob, I'm going to be like, well, no, I don't want to condemn him as a human being. The issue is when that gets inconsistent. When all of a sudden you say, I'm not going to condemn Nick Fuentes or like a whole person, like just because there's a couple bad ideas in there. And it's like, oh, well, what about Nick Sarwark? And it's like, oh, well, don't get me started on that one. Oh my gosh, I can condemn the heck out of him.
Exactly.
When you turn that switch on and off, you've revealed that it's not principled. It's, I don't want to condemn these uncomfortable things. I do want to condemn these things that are comfortable for me to condemn. And so when you were able to turn that switch on and off, you expose who you are. We all have biases. I want to say all of us probably, where we see a quote from Castro. And I just go, oh my gosh, Castro. And some people will be like, well, he did try to do some things against imperialism sometimes. And I'm just like, dude, grotesque. No, throw the whole thing into the fire. And that's one of the biases that I have, that I will sometimes condemn a person outright when it's like Castro. So I think it exposes our biases and who we are as a person. We all have them. I'm not saying it's largely problematic, but let's not pretend that bias doesn't exist. If we do have those biases, to just say, yeah, I have more in common with Nick Fuentes than I do with Nick Sarwark. Like, that just happens. Like, and that just tells people who you are as character. Now, I will say this: when somebody gives you an open three in basketball, why not take it? Like, there's a lot of like, oh, this shot would be too easy to hit. Well, okay, so I'm not going to hit it? Like, that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. So when somebody are like, condemn racism, I don't see why I should have to do that. you should view it as an opportunity to absolutely throw up a 3-ball against a weak, soft defense like racism. Everybody knows it's crap. Everybody dislikes it. Okay, fine. But then when somebody's like, do you dislike it as well? Be like, oh, yeah, that's like in basketball practice. They hit you behind the 3-point line. No defenders on you. And they'll be like, go ahead, just sink some shots. Sure. People, you want to show off how great you are against racism? Take it. Take it all day. Take it. Keep shooting them and never look back. If you don't like playing defense, listen, there's a lot of great basketball players that what kept them out of the Hall of Fame is their weakness on defense. Total liabilities. What kept them, even more than the Hall of Fame, what kept them from winning a title was that they don't care to play defense. It's not fun. It's not fun for them. They don't see how to turn that defense into offense. And I'm not saying every person has to be good at this, but if you're going to message for the liberty movement, you absolutely need to be good at this. This is like being a coach of a team, and you need to be able to be like, need this intense, aggressive defense so that, yeah, we can get to the offensive part. Offense is where you score points. I understand not wanting to be on defense, but if you don't want to be on defense, the solution is not to not play it. The solution is get your blocks, get your steals, play aggressively, and get back to offense. So if somebody throws up something like racist, where all of a sudden you feel like you're on your heels, you can easily generate this into positive points if you're a good messenger for liberty. It's very simple, especially with something like racism that is very lowball and very easy to dunk on.
Yeah, and just a quick response to that. I have said before to people who, like, you know, don't like, you know, fucking calling out racism and shit. A lot of them, you know, like, who say, oh, don't talk about the racist Ron Paul newsletters. I will say, well, hey, if you don't want to call out racism, do you think you're better than Ron Paul? And that stumps them, because they don't know what I mean. And then I just say, well, hey, in his Liberty Defined book, he has a whole fucking chapter against it. It's not that hard to do. You just say the thing and make sure people are clear on this. Like, if you're not better than Ron Paul, you know, who you hold to such a high regard, then maybe do what he did and call out the thing he called out instead of just supporting him like, you know, cherry pick, like appetizer platter, you know? Fucking, if he's okay with calling it out, and Ron Paul is my homeboy, as you've got the shirt on from 2012, then just do it. It's fine. You'll be fine, and the people who say that you're not are the people who made Ron Paul look like a racist, and those people should be shaken off the movement like fleas.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm like one of the first people to say we should, you know, we should be promoting ideas, not people. Like, it's okay to, you know, admire certain people, but we should not do idol worship because, again, like I've said, nobody's perfect. Everyone has had their share of bad takes. And we should take, you know, inspiration from the good takes and then also say, okay, but I don't agree with this, and this that this particular person said.
Archie, you had your hand up for a bit?
Yeah, so Hody already covered some of the stuff that that I was going to bring up. That it's pretty transparent if you won't take a dunk on Nick Fuentes, but you will dunk on Nick Sarwark. Yeah. Dave Smith and I have gone around a few times. I'm not going to lie about that. He said some really nasty things about me when I was still a chair of a state affiliate. Ostensibly, we were on the same team, and he would condemn me. But he's not going to condemn Fuentes? That's nuts. The other thing I think that we're losing focus on in the broader conversation is that there's a huge difference, a chasm of difference between, you know, some normie that you want to talk to on the street that isn't, you know, super excited about immigration, might even, you know, be like pro building a wall and stuff. There's a huge difference between that person and a Nick Fuentes or a David Duke or a Ryan Dawson. You know, there's a world of difference. And if you cannot condemn the easiest, you know, fruit to pick, you know, if you can't condemn Nick Fuentes when he says, you know, execrable things like, I want a 16-year-old bride
especially
when I'm 30.
Real quick, especially if you're going to be part of the cunts, the fascist shitbags who support libs of TikTok. Gays Against Groomers, you know, fucking Matt Walsh, all these stupid pieces of fascist fucking shit. Not even stupid, just like smart about the bigotry they endorse and how they package it and say, oh, I'm here to protect children, but then you won't call out a groomer because he's Nick Fuentes or because he ate meat at a vegan festival. Then fuck you. Go ahead, Archie. Sorry, I had to. I have issues psychologically speaking. Go ahead.
Well, before we get to it, okay, seriously, is there a way to disable this together mode thing? Because it's seriously fucking with me.
Yeah,
I can't tell where anyone.
It's per user. You
It's
just
so
go to
distracting.
view chat and
Yeah.
turn it off. It's
Yeah,
turned
it's
off for the
upper
main stream,
right.
I think.
I think.
So yeah.
Oh,
you have to
okay.
turn it.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, go
I
ahead.
mean, like we should, as a party, be able to condemn, you know, Roger Roots and say he does belong in the party, much less in a national committee, because he is on a committee at the national level. And Angela went on a podcast with Joe Walsh, I think, and actually, you know, defended Roger Roots as not racist. But when I went around with him in different Facebook groups and chats, he would never be able to point to anything where he actually made, you know, a remorseful, heartfelt apology for his past bullshit. Lately, he's been on defense teams for some of the J6 people. So he hasn't really changed his spots. He's just, you know, camouflaged them a little bit better.
Well, and to be
Calls
clear,
himself a race realist, which is
I
where
think. Sorry. I just wanted to say that I feel like it's not that there are people that are the problem with the party, personally, and I'm sure Jeremy feels the same way. It's the party that makes problems out of people. These reprehensible people with their reprehensible beliefs would not be constantly confused with real libertarian ethics if we didn't have a quote-unquote party to quote-unquote represent quote-unquote all of us. It's fucking stupid. Parties are antithetical to liberty, in my opinion, but that's...
and like, you know, it's also a representative of the ring of power. You know, like it will wield it fine. No, you won't, you cunt. Probably not. Probably not. And it's guaranteed. It's almost historically like it's just a thing. So if people are gonna tell me that it'll be different this time, fucking win. Fucking win. Because now I'm getting this like impression.
I am so glad that you brought up the Lord of the Rings reference.
yeah. And so it's like, fuck. You see, somebody else can be a nerd for a second. You don't have to take the heat.
Yes.
Fucking So it's just so asinine. It's like, when is it gonna get better? If you're gonna say that the party, and this will sort of get into some of the stuff for like the later parts of the conversation, talking about actual strategy and shit. But like, ooh, it's gonna be so different this time. It's tantalizing. We've got the new caucus. They're taking over. It's gonna be an awesome change, and maybe probably fucking not. And it's huh?
New caucus, same old fucking.
Yeah, exactly. Meet the new boss, same as the old cock.
I'll say, like, okay, party, yeah. I mean, my reason for joining the party is that I think, you know, it can be used as a vehicle for networking and for messaging and education. But, you know, it had been an embarrassment for so many years. I'm like, oh, well, wouldn't it be awesome, like, if there were people who had actual libertarian principles who were wielding this party, okay? It turns out that's probably never going to happen, because no matter who tries to take the party over, they always get, you know, corrupted for one reason or another.
Yep.
So, yeah, okay, it's probably a losing.
Can I take a small umbrage with that? Because I've been with the party for 30 years, and it's kind of disheartening to hear that I'm an embarrassment.
I didn't say you.
When I was part of
the party as a whole.
But I'm part of the party infrastructure. I'm a delegate. I'm chair of a local party. I've done things for 30 years with this party.
No, I think there are a lot of expert libertarians in the party.
So
I think by its
and I think they've done great work for 30 years too. I defend everything a lot of things they've done over the past years. So I'm just trying to figure out where I've gone wrong and how I have supported an embarrassment that way.
Here's 5 things I could bring up that really chat my asshole. So like the first thing I could say is the fact that the Libertarian Party at its roots was very Koch affiliated, and that the whole Nolan Koch Rothbard thing was the thing that caused the original agorists to spring up. And the fact that they kicked Rothbard out of the Cato Institute, but the Cato people were still a whole lot of the same, like, you know, a whole lot of the original power structure of the LP, created a whole lot of problems, let's just say, for consistency purposes. Like, when you read New Libertarian Manifesto, he's accurate in his assessments of what was said in, like, what was said and done in original libertarian circles. Then you fast forward a little bit, and the Libertarian Party is having schisms and a bunch of other stuff, like, a decade later, because of the paleo strategy, and that not working. And then people fracture off to the, like, to the Republican Party, like, which is, you know, exactly happening again. The past is echoing. Like the Libertarian Mises Caucus was the attempted recorrection to a more Rothbardian thing, which is why they are dumb fucks for calling it the Mises Caucus, but that's a separate thing. Like,
I said that a long time ago.
And yeah, and so, like, minor quibble of naming your thing after somebody you would routinely call a shitlib if he actually spoke to you. Disliking it when Amash quotes, "Oh no, he said libertarian instead of liberal," but that's what he meant, and it's what you mean if you think you're a libertarian and also a Misesian, and if it's not, you can't reconcile the both, and you're fucking stupid. So I got blocked by Bob Murphy for saying that on Twitter. I thought he had thicker skin than that, but apparently his cock is little about that sort of shit. So, anyway, just all of that brings me to the more modern day. The last libertarian candidate that actually had me a little bit interested, maybe voting, was John McAfee. And they gave him the shaft. They gave him the fucking shaft and treated him like garbage. And then he gave one of the best speeches at any libertarian convention, where he talked about the fact that they're bad at messaging, they're bad at outreach, they're bad at understanding principle, and they're bad at reaching out to people who aren't straight white dudes. He said, "Shame on you." And he's right. Shame on you. Exactly. True. It's just true. So, like, when it comes down to it, that was the last campaign that really interested me. And then the Mises Caucus popped up, and I'm like, maybe these guys might be something. And so I joined their groups, right? And I get some of my stuff submitted where I'm dunking on the pro-war people, where I'm dunking on the neocons, and it's like, yeah, we got some simpatico maybe, and I meet Kareem there, and a bunch of, you know, other people who I legitimately don't think are bad people. But then it comes down to me starting to defend trans people, and oppose fascism, and oppose the rightoids that they're affiliating with, and oppose, like, involvement in certain rallies and circles and shit, and hold them accountable for some shit. And they're like, oh man, he's against Malay. He's consistently posting anti-Malay posts in our group about an American political party! And yes, I am! And I will, and I always will! And so they kicked me out. They blocked me on Twitter. They're cowards. They're cowards.
Do you think it was the Malay stuff?
It was the Malay stuff, because that was all of my last stuff in their groups.
Do you think it was actually like someone trying to watch the video?
It wasn't even that, probably.
So
it was just about getting tired of me. Like, tired of me posting this Malay stuff all the time, because that became the only stuff that I would post in that group, because it's like, why am I going to help you? Why am I going to help you dunk on the libs or whatever if you're not even going to let me dunk on somebody who's an authentic authoritarian fascist threat? You're not an actual libertarian caucus. You're not a part of a libertarian movement. You suck, asshole. I'm going to talk about it. And then they kicked me out and blocked me. That's how they operate.
Yeah, I will say.
I've got a few complaints of my own about the Libertarian Party. And I will say that in certain local spaces on a small local level, libertarian parties are doing good. I can point to the Louisiana State Libertarian Party as a great example of that. But my issue with it mainly is they fail to point out the people that are coming in that are statists. They fail to educate people out of the statist ideals, and they fail to push people out who are there to subvert people into statist ideals. And what happens is it ends up propagating a culture of people that don't hold liberty ideals. And it leads into like a lot of the issues that Jeremiah was talking about, where like, you know, people are like splitting off and sectionalizing. And like when you bring up issues in some of these spaces, like my significant other is trans. And like I would probably die for that person. And I have to go around and hear from like some of these people that my significant other has groomed me into our relationship and shit like that. And this person is just trying to express themselves and live their life. Like, and I mean, it's just so often the case nowadays. There's also the whole thing where like libertarians have broken the Dallas Accord at this point. A lot of anarchists as a majority don't really want to be affiliated with the Libertarian Party and are off doing their own thing in their own groups. As an anarchist, like I can't really endorse the Libertarian Party or work within it anymore for a number of reasons. So.
Right. No, I mean, I've said this before. Like, there's a reason why I haven't done much in the way of recruiting in a long time. Because, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to spend my time, you know, trying to explain to people, no, you should totally give us a chance. You know, we're not all a bunch of far-right reactionaries. Only to have them visit, you know, say the Mises Caucus page and have the first thing they see be some, you know, meme shitting on trans people for no fucking reason or.
Oh, but it's not for
like
no
that.
reason.
So,
it's because they're trying to reach out to people who hate trans people, and they don't care that those people are also often fascists. Go ahead, though. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rose.
That was pretty much it.
Okay. So Dennis and then Hody.
So one example, I get kind of two things quick to say, but one is we in India, I belong to the Indiana party, and the Indiana State Party is one of the strongest parties in the movement. It is done because it is professional and it is serious about what it's doing. We have good messaging. We don't have a problem with the Mises Caucus in Indiana because they understood when they came there that we kind of knew what we were doing, and we showed it. That we knew what we were doing, and that's why we're trying to bring that. And it's because of the professionalism that we employ, and not the crazy messaging, but the good messaging. We had a governor candidate run last time that got a huge number of votes. We won in like 20 different counties, or came in second in 20 different counties, I think, and came close to winning in several of them. And we've got a huge bump from that. We got a lot of people into the movement from that. Into the state party. So we have grown, and we're one of the top 10 state affiliates now. I think we're in the top 6 or something like that now. It's huge what we've done. So because of that, you know, I know for a fact that we can succeed at doing this. And that's one of the problems, is that the people who were doing that professionalism in that state are the ones that are getting shit on by the current leadership of the movement. And we, like I said, I've been blocked by hundreds of different Mises people. I've been blocked by Dave Smith. I've been blocked by Michael Heiss. Michael Heiss actually talks about me in a very negative way to people I know, because I was thwarting his attempt to just division the party, division the movement, which is what he was doing. So that's kind of where I was going with that. But the other thing too is, you mentioned that Rothbard was kicked out of Cato. Do you know why he was kicked out of Cato?
Go for it.
Because this is like I don't know, some minor history lesson people may not know.
He had a falling out, folks.
There was a bit of a falling out. So what happened was that he was trying to get there was a actual newsletter that they were running that was reaching out to the left side of the political spectrum, and he was huge on it. He loved this thing. He thought it was great to have.
Yeah, left and right.
Was it working? Huh?
Left and right.
No, it was I can't remember the name of the newsletter.
If you can, definitely bring it up. I'll link it in the somewhere.
Sure. I've got there's an actual interview with David Crane about this. So it was very, very few times he actually talked about it. But They made the decision, Crane and Koch made the decision to shuttle that newsletter. He got incensed about it, went behind Crane's back to Koch to have Crane fire. Well, Crane said, "This is what's happening." He tried to go behind your back and fire you, get you fired. So at that point, they decided that he couldn't be there anymore, and they kicked him out for that. So that was the whole impetus behind what happened there.
Well, it's almost like if you work with people who, like, their family money is from Fred Koch, and Fred Koch ran the largest oil refinery for the Nazis, that's going to end poorly for liberty. I'm sorry, I'm yelling a lot.
Right, but the problem, I know, but the problem is that you had Rothbard actually trying to reach out to the left, and they decided to end that program, and that's what incensed him about it, to the point that Rothbard took it very personally because he had his stocks taken from him because he was trying to manipulate what was going on. So they took the stocks from him because it was part of the agreement they had made. So he was so incensed about it that it created a schism between the two factions, as it were.
Yeah.
And that was like the original schism of the 1980s, early 1980s, from the most successful presidential campaign we had until Gary Johnson came along, was then just destroyed because of this huge schism. There are people I know, Joe Houtman was at the convention when all of this took place, and a bunch of people just walked out of the party, got up and just left. Right. So that sort of stuff happens, and we keep repeating that history. Because no one wants to go back and relive it or know it. Because you end up getting all these people who come in new and think, oh, this was such an horrible before. We're going to come in and we're going to fix it. We're going to make it great. It's like, you got to understand what came before, though. You got to understand the history of it and the institutional knowledge of what's going on in order to build off that sort of thing, the successes that we had, and mitigate the failures. And we just keep repeating the same failures over and over again. And that was my biggest complaint to Heiss. He wouldn't listen to me, and he just repeated it. He did the exact same thing again. And now we have the same situation that happened then, when we had 1% in the presidential election in 1980 to 1984, when we couldn't muster 2.5%.
And real quick,
3%. It was terrible.
Real quick fire response, real quick, because I just need to say this. Like, it's not just Heiss, it's Malagon and his, like, insulting people like Avens O'Brien while using the profile picture she took. It's inviting
it's
RFK.
The people he surrounded himself with.
Yeah,
the people who he aligns with in order to get what he wanted. A division politics. So there's two ways to do politics. There's a positive politics and a division politics. And he took the easy way, where you can easily whip people up into a divisionary us against them type of mindset, as opposed to bringing them into an idea.
Right. He
didn't want to go that route. He went the route of division.
Right.
And what happens when you go the route of division? You create the division, and then you have to pick up the pieces from it. And it was funny because Chris Spangle and I years ago said what's going to happen is they're going to take over because they're doing it this way. They're going to get in power, and then they're going to realize we can't continue to run this way. We're going to have to become the pragmatics that we complained about for so long. And then they started kind of looking at rid of some of these people who are problems, and getting rid of Jeremy Kaufman and trying to bump him out. They started doing the same things. And now a lot of people who came in because they wanted that, the New Hampshire group are really upset because Mises Caucus basically sold them out and became the prags. And that's what happens to happen when you run an organization. You have to do a professional job of it. And the people who know how to do that, the people who have the experience doing it and are successful at it, as we do in Indiana, are the ones that aren't getting touted and put in place. And that's why I think Rutherford decided to step in and try and run again as chair, because he wants to try to bring what we're doing to the way it succeeds.
Yeah, and
as a party,
and like all
not as a movement, not as libertarians all together, but for the political party process, we have successes. We can point to all the successes we've done in that state. We just want to bring it to the national, and that's what we've always tried to do. And every time we get close to doing it, this new group forms up and says, "No, this is the wrong way," and tries to tear it down and split it apart again. This has repeated itself half a dozen times in just the past 30 years that I've been involved.
Yeah, and so just real quick before, and then we'll go to Hody. It's not just him. It's like so many people involved in this takeover. It's not just like the Mises Caucus either. It's the Emo Caucus. It's all of these caucuses that are trying to pop up and address one or more of these like edgy groups. And like a lot of these people, they don't give a shit. They don't fucking care about the actual principles, and they never did. What they care about is like getting their name out there so that after the election they can sell fucking books and get fucking podcast guests, and like they're even cashing in now. Like a good example, and I know this is gonna incense some people, but a good example is like the Toads of the world, who have a podcast and they're trying to get those people on their podcast, and they don't give a shit. So, you know, it's like that with so many of these people. They've got a brand to fucking shill. They've got shit that they want to, like, get off their chest. They've got people that they want to attack, and they want to seem official while they do it. They don't fucking care. Hody and then Bigfoot. I guess Aaron decided to dip. If he wants to come on another one of these, he can, but I think maybe he didn't have time. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a little busy. I do want to stick up for Rose a little bit, that when there's an issue with the old messaging or the old party or something, it's not a condemnation on every single person that was in the LP at that time.
Absolutely.
I've
said the same shit,
this
too.
Is very... And I think that this is the problem, is that people align themselves with like Nick Sarwark and stuff on accident when they get offended when they say the old party was terrible. I mean, Nick lied about our network, like straight up.
Oh, I have no love lost for Nick. Trust me. He's the one that kept Mark Rutherford from getting elected in 2012. I mean, I have no love lost for the guy. Right. But he was also one of the most effective chairs we had, too.
That wasn't my intention.
Right. No, I know it wasn't, and it didn't come across that way, Rose, which is why I think I'm sticking up for you a bit here, because like there is an issue, and I know, Reinhold, that you're not doing it, but what she's talking about when she says I had issues with this, that it's like that's what she has issues with. So when we get defensive about it, then we need to be able to identify what the problems were, and that needs to be okay. Like when 75% of your LNC is like, this person is threatening me and my political future, and like message these people. I beg you. If somebody worked on the LNC, message them, see how it goes. Now, like John Phillips and Joshua Smith, like they came forward and was like, yep, he's threatening me, like if I don't vote a certain way. When I heard that, I messaged a bunch of other people and was like, hey, does this happen to you on the LNC? And I'm like, I told them I'd give them anonymity, but I encourage you to replicate this project. Message them and ask if Nick did the same to them. And he'll say yes. That's reprehensible. Now, he was dishonest to us personally on this network when it was like, I don't know, are there presidential debates going on, when we were hosting them? And then he'd be tagged in them, of course, right? Like we'd be tagging the LNP, tagging Nick. Like John Phillips, to his credit, was like, he wasn't even a part of it, and he was like, this is so cool. He posted it to, like, I think the Democrats were having their debates, posted it to them. And like we got like 1,000 people who were following like the NBC like debates over to like watch our thing when he tagged it over there. Really cool. Now I admit, low quality. Like it was just good conversations and good stuff. And had he said, you know what, we're looking for something a little more polished, no issue. Would have been no thing. Instead, he was like, I haven't heard of it. After getting tagged a million times, and the man's active on social media. Yeah. And then finally was like, well, in order for us to share anything on official stuff, we actually have to put it through you have to submit a request through your at-large representative or your regional representative. So I did that. I go through the whole process. I even hear back from the regional representative. They're like, yeah, we talked it over. Like, we discussed it and everything. And then after that, we went back to, I've never heard of it. Oh, are there debates going on? Like, the man is an absolute liar. You want to talk about bad messaging. So, and this is why I got to give it to the LPMC on this one. I will say, it is wrong to say that the old regime ever like stuck up for the mandates. They lie about that a lot. We didn't. Nobody did. The official site, I shouldn't say from the Cato Institute that Angela debated did. Right, like there are individual like morons, right? But like the old LNC, I actually know the old comms officer. Like, they did not post anything like "yay mandates, yay lockdowns." They were not strong on it. And in fact, Nick would go into and be like, when somebody was like, this lockdown, or they'd arrest, like I brought this up before on the show, they'd arrest a bunch of rabbis that were social distancing, masked up, trying to do everything they could, and arrested them for meeting at all. They'd arrest a surfer in the middle of the ocean. And Nick would be like, how has the government power grown during COVID? Mm-hmm. And would ask this on like all these people's posts, like no different than how racists would be like, I'm just asking questions over here. Yep. And when and at first I took him as genuine, and I was like, I'll answer your questions. Here's laws. Here's laws that have been passed. Here's laws that are being considered, right? Like when people are like, is there an effort against trans people? And you bring up like 2,800 pieces of legislation, no different than what you could do for the COVID like lockdowns and mask mandates. Like this is absolutely a legal thing. And you have the chair of your political party being like, did it actually happen? And when I post like a billion things to him, and I wasn't angry. Even at that point, he'd lied about me. I wasn't angry about him. I thought he was genuinely dumb. So I was like, okay, like here's some things. If you're not informed, here's some things. And wouldn't respond. And then would go on another post. How did it grow? I don't understand. And then I posted again. How did it grow? Different post. He would post and ghost and didn't want to hear about it. So when you have the chair of your party who's objectively denying that there was any amount of government growth because of the pandemic, how can you not demand his resignation? It is not a surprise. I mean, he lied about the whole founding of the party being because of Charlottesville. How do you think Archie's going to join? Do you think John Hudak is going to join the Mises Caucus because they're explicitly racist? Shut up. Like, Nick is such a massive liability. And he was such a problem that when people, I mean, he's the guy when you talk about taking the plank out of your own eye before you pull the splinter out of your neighbor's eye.
Convention, yeah.
They are talking about Nick.
Nick is just great.
Yeah, Nick is the plank in our eye, right? Like when we are critical of the Mises Caucus. And I think instead of reflexively trying to defend what he did, or just be like, well, I think Sarwar. I don't want to be the party of lesser evils. We need to cut out the evil. And the thing is if we're going to be cavalier and stalwart against what the LPMC is doing, and we should, then we need to at least be willing to look inwardly and be just as loud and just as vocal about the problems with Sarwark. Because if we're going to move forward from the Mises Caucus, and it appears that we are, then we need to learn the lessons of both Sarwark and Heiss. And that is really like the whole thing. You don't have to condemn either one outright. You can say, I like this, I like that. I do this with both of them. Heiss has fantastic work ethic. Heiss is one of the best people when like somebody is suffering, like, and just like loses their house to be like, hey, let's get this person in a. We need people like that in the world. Nick is one of the best people on national television with a mic in his face. Like, he's a great representative on TV. Fantastic. Great. But we need to be able to identify their problems, right? We need to be able to identify the weaknesses of both and say, let's get stronger by saying, here's where the mistakes were and moving on. And this is the importance here, that when we get defensive about these mistakes, we're really just saying, no, we're cool with the old mistakes, and we need to not be.
See, here's the thing, is that I agree that there's always been mistakes and we need to learn from them. That's always been my position. But I would feel a lot more okay with the criticism that Nick gets for the pressuring of people to do votes if we would do the same thing with Karen Ann and Angela, who have done worse than Nick ever did on that front, right? I mean, the outright contempt and hatred that she threw got her kicked off the LNC in the first place, right? That apparently never really happened.
Except Karen Ann is actually a consistent libertarian, unlike Nick Sarwark.
I completely disagree.
No, she isn't.
I completely disagree. And I used to look up to her. Yeah, I used to look up to her, and she is not. She is a political animal, and she's caused division and strife wherever she's been before she came here and here.
Yes, and people who are principled and don't tolerate bullshit tend to get labeled that way.
But she's a hypocrite, 100% hypocrite. She said that when she tried to get Vorhal removed from the LNC, and she went through and she was the one that led that vote. And it didn't go through because Nick Sarwark blocked it at the very end because it was they needed his vote and he abstained, or he said no because it was like 2 months before the convention and the convention people would take care of it. That's what his position was. But she did not demand all this other stuff that she expected to have when she was being the same thing was done to her. She also stated that if she ever became an embarrassment like Nick Warhol was, that she would resign immediately. She didn't. She said she wouldn't run for another in 2024. She's running. She is just what she believes, and that's the way it is. And anybody else can fuck off. And she won't listen to anybody even tell her that she might be wrong about something. You know, she's terrible at that. And Angela's is probably worse, but she hides it in the background and she doesn't let it be public. There's a lot of private stuff. We used to have an open list that was supposedly everything was supposed to be done on the open list so everybody could see what was happening. And she has gone and created a whole separate behind the scenes thing where everything is decided beforehand. That was the one thing I hated about Reno was we get in to go to Reno and there's hardly any debate on anything. It was just like, we put this thing in place and we tabled the debate and everybody voted to table the debate and we just did it. And nobody could get up and say, hey, this is wrong because they weren't allowed to. Because the majority people, they had the majority and they could write over the rights of the minority to try to say, hey, and change people's minds on it. So that's the stuff I'm saying is that if these people are saying that Nick was bad, they're doing worse stuff and they're not acknowledging it. They're not recognizing it. They're not calling it out internally. So it makes me like, okay, so, you know, it just frustrates me to no end to see that happen. Right. And I call it out when I see it.
So three things real quick, three things before you respond, Rose, because I want you to be able to say everything. Kareem, you have joined, but your camera is not on yet. Feel free to like join when you can turn that on, and until then I hear a bunch of background stuff, so feel free to also deal with that. Those things, and also, so after Rose says something, sorry I got distracted by DM, Bigfoot, Archie, after Rose reply.
Oh, what was I saying? Okay. No, I was saying, yeah, no, I get that Karen and certain other people in leadership positions can be hard to work with, but I guess my point was about messaging. You know, she does an excellent job on platform party. Like the messaging that she puts out there is actually consistent. So I'd definitely say she's an improvement over Sarwark and previous leadership.
Bigfoot.
So, to respond to what you said earlier, I'm a guy who's been in the party for 30 years. Sorry,
Dennis.
I'm terrible with names, and I can't ever remember. And I'm on my phone, so like I can't easily see all your names. I'm really trying to remember everybody.
I'm shit with names.
Anyway, to I guess give my response to what you said about like I feel like I've wasted my time, or like how have I wasted my time and stuff like that. I wouldn't say that your time was wasted, and I would honestly say that from my perspective, what it sounds like is it sounds like a lot of genuinely good people doing their best to fix a fundamentally broken system. I don't believe that a party is capable of doing anything other than wasting people's times if it participates in the political system whatsoever. And to, I guess, expound upon that idea, basically what it looks like to me is the reverse of a pyramid where the tip is at the bottom and the bottom is where the leadership is, and only the most political people get to the bottom, get to the leadership, and get to run the party. And though the more political you are, the less real you can be by the nature of the political system. You have to subvert your values, your principles, your this, that, or the other in order to be presentable and to have presentable beliefs to represent the party like on a national stage. And all of those things slowly chip away and corrupt anyone's pre-existing principle, so that even if you don't become corrupted, your successor will, or your predecessor was. And so you're always fighting this losing battle. Meanwhile, the filth will continually sink to the bottom because they'll say whatever they need to say in order to make it to the bottom and run the party. I think the only way to prevent that constant downward press is to A, make the party decentralized by basically making it only a consensual party, as opposed to like no one above your local branch would have any power over your branch. That would be the only way to fight that downward push. That, and also completely pushing away from elections and electoralship and stuff like that, and just being like, hey, we're just a party of action. We actually help people, and we preach liberty message while we do it. You know, like I've always said, hand out Thomas Paine and Spooner while you're handing out bowls of soup to the homeless. Let's convert the bottom before we start talking to the top.
Yeah. Then Archie.
And,
I just want to counter. I just want to counter that. Party of Indiana, political success, professional success, messaging, all that stuff we're successful at, and we have been for a long time. And so it kind of flies into the assertion that all parties are like that. Some parties are like that. Some parties end up that way, but we have not. And there's a reason for it. And that's because we were committed to what we're doing. We have checks in place. We have the right people going on, and we groom the next group of people coming in to do the same thing. We're teaching them how to do this right. So we have been a huge success in that regard, right? And the Libertarian Party is supposed to be that decentralized thing. The National Committee is not supposed to be able to get involved or interfere with the state parties, but they have been, and they've been increasingly doing it. I mean, even before, when Oregon had its problem, we let Oregon kind of figure it out and take care of it. But as soon as we have this new group in place running things, and there's affiliate problems, now we've got lawsuits going on. Now we're getting involved. Now we're picking sides. Now we're injecting ourselves into the state. And that was always against the concept of what the Libertarian Party was supposed to be. And if we were just wanting to have a group of people going out and saying, let's do good works and let's do these great things, we have dozens of those organizations already. We have no organizations trying to enact political change. We need at least one of those, and that's what the party is supposed to be. If you want to do just the types of stuff you're talking about, we have organizations already doing that. We can have more doing that. I agree, do more of that stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to get rid of the one avenue we have to have some sort of political impact.
I can see where you're coming from. I'm gonna have to go, guys. I've got to run from the CIA. They're approaching my position, and I'm losing this connection. But you all have a wonderful night. I was happy to participate in this conversation.
You as well, man. Be well. Archie, and then Kareem intro for those of you who don't know. Also, if you're in the chat, we will be addressing I guess this will be a venting and grievance stream. That wasn't supposed to be, but we'll make the next one more about, like, how to solve the problems, because if we just do
tension that kind of got lost
in
the stream,
but it's all right. Well. It's all right, fine. Yeah,
happens.
But Hody
will theme for the stream, though.
Yeah, so the stream, like, we were gonna go over, like, and we'll do this next time, I guess. Violent versus peaceful, voting versus non-direct action versus representative action. So, like, all this stuff that we could discuss. We'll get down to more brassier attacks next time, after we've established all the problems, and we can have a week to think about that and how best to, like, articulate our responses for that. But we'll be responding to chat comments. But right now, like, share, and subscribe, and give me money if you don't want to see me shoot heroin in my dick. So, those things are there, and also, we'll be responding to chat comments in a bit. Archie, Kareem introduce after Archie, and then we'll get into questions.
So yeah, I just want to make sure the record is clear that whatever Sarwark has been guilty of, Karen Ann has done way, way, way worse. And I know from personal experience that she is happy to be a liar in favor of her cause. She lied about what happened in the Vermont Libertarian Party when I was chair. She did a video about it. She came to be a speaker precisely to put division into the party. So yeah, I'm not going to buy that she's, some good faith actor that just happens to, attract drama because she's so principled. That's no. I will not accept that
I mean, that
characterization.
wasn't entirely my argument, but I have noticed that she gets a lot of undeserved hate from people who, you know,
And she gets a
weren't
lot of very deserved hate, too.
okay.
Well, Rose,
The only person that was worse in that situation that wasn't in Vermont was Pat Ford, my regional representative, who lied in email chains about what was going on with the Ballot Access Committee. He deliberately lied. I called him out on it, and he's the only one that I would say is worse than Karen Ann.
I do want to give Rose some uninterrupted time to respond to the criticism of Karen, though, because like I feel
No,
okay. If you don't want to, it's totally up to you. Or any like, I want people to be able to fully express themselves on these streams. That's sort of
I'm not going to speak on anyone else's behalf, but yeah, I'm just saying.
Well, and Karen, you're free to respond to any of this stuff as well.
Right.
Sorry, go.
That has not been my experience.
Yeah. Well, and like that's one of the things. Like we all have different experiences in this regard. Some people's experiences with YAL, for instance, are that YAL was a great organization. My experience is that they are a Koch-funded neoliberal shill organization for a bunch of right-wing organizations that are sisters in funding and support and structure. And that's why they elect so many liberty Republicans. And that's the reason Jeremy Kauffman can celebrate YAL for all their libertarian successes and then not celebrate them when they say maybe we won't give you and your bigoted bullshit a table at our convention, you know, and maybe we won't do that while also like endorse. He's totally willing to say that like Liz Wolfe at Reason is compromised because of alleged donors trust Koch funding, blah 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 blah. And yes, that is there. But you know where else donors trust funding is, Jeremy? It's in fucking YAL. And you supported them, and you backed their door knocking campaign, and you gave them money, and you publicly sucked their cock. Was it humiliating, or did you like it? So that's my fucking stance. Kareem, intro, and then Rose, say words.
It didn't happen. I said Pixar, it didn't happen.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. So did he decide to visit our chat this week?
No, he's not here. He didn't decide to shove his micro penis where it's unwanted. Kareem.
All right, so cool. We have the anarcho-primitivist roundtable. I like it. Sounds good. Basically, been listening to everything, and I agree overall. But I still don't want the old guard back because they didn't do anything else. I'd rather try and refine what we have now and work with C4SS. Aside from that, like I know Kaufman was mentioned and stuff, really not. I mean, the New Hampshire party was pretty good at being spicy on a lot of issues, and I was like, good job. Even when Dave Smith said you're being too spicy, I'm like, no, there's no. I don't really think there is a thing that's too spicy until you start threatening people. That's probably too spicy. But not really digging that whole tweet because I actually, overall, I believe in the NAP, but I believe if there's extreme circumstances like societal collapse, ethnic cleansing, something else really bad that probably can't think off the top of my head, that extreme action is warranted. So when they say, oh yeah, the cops should go after, I'm the only one who's really in support of these protesters, I feel, on the libertarian, that has friends on the libertarian right or in that circle, because I think, hey, if something like that is going on, then you have the right to be vocal about it and to even be a little bit extreme about it. That's how people will get to notice you. And I don't feel it's necessary to put on a suit or be super dignified or do any of that weird stuff. So that's what I think.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, just to be clear, fuck spicy, because that's not what they're doing. They're being actively fascist bigots. And one of the most recent examples is if you look at their discussions of trans, what they've been doing is they've been they told this person who just wants like free school lunches in their area that they should kill themselves. And like this is part of a long-standing tradition of being like this way about trans people. Like if you look up from LPNH trans, their most popular tweet involving that word is reposting a Stone Toss comic who is a Nazi, who is Red Panels, who is a piece of shit. And we've known this for a while, but now we know it even more concretely thanks to some journalism. And reposting this comic where, like, Stone Toss was joking about, oh, I got an emo lawn, it'll cut itself, and then, anyway, check out my transgender picture frames, talking about them hanging themselves. It's like that. It's this again, talking about transgender ideology. And they're all talking about how trans people are the only ones genociding themselves. They need help, blah, blah, blah. And they'll just do this all the time. No child is trans. They're just biological boys and girls who are being exploited by ideologies, opportunists, and medical salesmen. This is what they do. They're lying, fascist pieces of shit. So it's not a matter of spicy. Spicy is not the word for it. Spicy is never the word for it. They're bigoted, evil, fascist cunts. So, no, they should fuck off.
Be like unapologetically anti-imperialist or something. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, being spicy doesn't mean you have to, be deliberately offensive. I mean, you'll be offensive to the statists and the war apologists, but that's the good thing.
I think spicy is like when Elon said, like a direct example, if I remember, Elon said Alex Jones back in the day can't come back because, like, he said something about, like, whatever happened, like with I guess it was a Sandy Hook thing, but then then they posted like, we'd like to let Elon know that the U.S. government has done this like a million more times. Stuff like that's pretty good. Also being super, anti-imperialist is pretty good, like calling people out. The most spicy thing that I did like was with the Meghan McCain. Someone put happy holidays.
I was okay with that. That was fine by me.
I thought that was funny. And Tim Pool even's like, oh my God, that's not funny. I miss John McCain. Wasn't John McCain a good guy? He just wanted to bomb half of the planet. It wasn't John McCain.
Well, yeah, but that's because Tim Pool is a fascist ghoul as well. Go ahead, Rose.
Oh, I was saying, that tweet I liked because, it pissed off the conservators, so... But they weren't going to anyway. They're not our allies. So if it, let them know, you're not actually a libertarian. Good.
And but also like pissed off people who lost their parents.
They're our allies. So, we're actually anti-state, and then they're like, wait a minute, you guys don't support the cops, or fuck that.
Yeah, it's one thing to like crap on the libs. It's other thing to like crap on people who've lost a parent. Like in fact, that tweet was specifically cited. You want to know why they don't have Defend the Guard in New Hampshire? Is because the governor's like, oh, the Libertarian Party's associated with that? Those people that did the Happy Holidays meme? Yeah, I'm not signing this shit. Like, objectively, this has made the world less free because you wanted to be a hardcore messenger. And the thing is like, I'm not going to defend McCain. That's always the attack, right? Like, oh, I touched your golden calf. Like, yeah, I really love McCain, of course. No, the issue is that when you shit your pants on a bus and you can be like, look, all the libtards think it smells, but also half of everybody also think, like, the other normal people are also like, hey, maybe don't sit next to me, bro. Like, I don't like you crapped your pants. I don't want to smell the crap in your pants. So, like, I understand, like, if angering conservatards is the point, and I think Dave Smith said it right on this one, is that if you want the most followers and your goal is to just be spicy, deny the Holocaust. You will immediately get the most followers of any affiliate. Like, easy thing to do, right? Like, baseline, stupid easy, and you will get the most followers. And it will be all over Fox News and all over those things that you say you want. Great. You will be there. We'll talk about you. But it's positive or is it negative? Just kick. and this is what I
Sorry, you've been breaking up for a bit now, Hody.
Sorry.
I don't know. Is it positive what?
Like, is it positive or negative attention? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? And ultimately, I would argue that while you might say, oh, I have no respect for John McCain, good, me too, neither do I, that a grieving daughter is maybe what the world will see, and they'll be like, she's sad she lost her dad. Oh, look at these ghouls that are laughing about her losing her dad. Do I want to be associated with the ghouls or not? What you're doing is like, if you get off the bus after I crap my pants on it, you're just not principled. No, there are plenty of people that just don't appreciate the smell of you crapping your pants. And you can call it spicy or whatever. But if we're going to be objectivists, then we kind of have to see like cause and effect. Like if we believe in praxeology, we need to understand human behavior enough to say, this is going to push away. Yes, all the libs are triggered by it. All the conservatives are triggered by it. And that's it. And then half of the people who are libertarians, but also like can empathize with a grieving daughter, are also upset by it. But I upset all the right people. Like there has to be a better, like a higher goal. Like liberty needs to be a higher goal for you than making people upset.
And of course, like, telling black people to go back to Africa, endorsing anti-Jew bullshit.
I mean, that's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Liability.
You guys are going a little far here because here's the thing. I'm not advocating for. Let me just be really clear on some of this stuff. I'm not advocating for like making slurs against racial anything like that, Jews or black people or gay people or anything like that. I am saying if somebody was, and they were, like if somebody like makes a joke, like, everybody calls Dan Crenshaw Patch McCain and they make jokes, or I've seen like people put Mike Johnson in a red coat uniform. I like that because like, hey, at least it'll draw people's attention to something who might not be reading or looking, and they're like, wait, why are they saying Mike Johnson's a red coat? Oh, okay, here's what this guy's been doing. Oh, he's a Christian fascist. Oh, okay, he's doing this, and that. So that's good. There's a certain line. You still do it tactfully. Like when my friend Max Henry put the truckers and it said, F you, join us. I'm like, yeah, put that up. People are like, that's not professional. Is there a certain line between, because the old Libertarian Party, they're like, we have to, we don't want any messaging that it almost seemed they wanted to fight the establishment, but have messaging that was establishment friendly. Like when I was on Joe Solosky's team. Then you get messaging that's like overtly racist, which is up here, which is just like, screw this group of people, or, stuff like Top Lobster or Toad posts. Not really down with that. But then there's a middle where we can start to insult politicians and congressmen and people who start wars. And I say the gloves are off at that point. You can't be nice to people. Like when people, when Ben Gavir's car flipped over, someone said he should go to Al Shifa Hospital. I'm like, that's funny. Like, I mean, can't there be a middle line where we just tar and feather a little bit of tyrants online, which I think is well due.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. But yeah, going after regular people is one thing, but going after politicians, especially war criminals, is another.
Yeah, I just don't. And to be fair, I'm not saying like you cannot like to tweet, but I guess what I would say is there a direct like online trail to say, well, because of the Happy Holidays tweet or a couple tweets like that, we're not going to get Defend the Guard?
Yes, that is. It was brought up on Andrew Heaton's podcast. Actually, a governor who is generally, I mean, in fact, oftentimes the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire will talk about how they forced their Republicans to be more libertarian by being there. That the libertarian-ish leaning Republican governor was like, oh, LPNH associated with that? The Happy Holidays tweet? No, I'm not doing anything with that. And their Senate has stopped passing it. So as a result, Defend the Guard may pass in Maine. Idaho, there's a couple other states that are looking at it, but it has no chance in New Hampshire because of LPNH. And so, like, for me, that's like where it has to get objective. Like, we need to be, because like what you say, like, should we care about these people and like make them golden like establishment? Should we be kind with them, whatever? Now, my general rule of thumb is to try and be kind with people if you can, but I recognize that there's a point where Jesus has to knock over some tables when the Pharisees are doing business. So you need to understand, like, whose table are you knocking over? Is it the Pharisees' table, or are you knocking over grieving people's tables? Like, when you are like, if you are throwing crap at the Republicans, great. If you were throwing crap at yourself and the entire bus you're on, then not great. And so there becomes a point where we just need to kind of like, I mean, it's weird because the LPMC is like obsessed with praxeology. I've learned about this whole like concept from like LPMC podcasters. And yet there's like this refusal to be like, this objectively hurt us. That sucks. We should not do that. And yet we can't like call it out, or and I'm not saying that, I'm not asking for like a call out culture or anything like that, but at least some awareness. I do want to give the LPNH some credit. Something that they posted that got just as much traction like the week before that positively, and this is amazing to think about because we talk about the Happy Holidays tweet all the time, was this girl who got like busted because she was working underage at like her parents' flower shop, right? Totally made it sympathetic towards the girl. Absolutely fantastic messaging. Was shared all over major networks in a positive way. So it's not like this, the only way we have to get attention is by crapping our pants. You don't have to crap your own pants and watch everybody else's reaction as they smell it. You can absolutely crap on the establishment and being like, look what they did to this poor girl. Like, they're arresting her because of these child labor laws. Listen, there's a lot of libertarians that aren't hardcore enough to go after child labor laws. And props to the LPNH in this situation. They should be, because it hurts some genuinely innocent people. And they brought it up, and it was great, and it was shared, and it was well received. There's a way to do positive attention. The issue when you do that is that it's like, yeah, I crapped my own pants, so shame on me. A lot of conservatards and libtards or whatever think it smells. Okay, good, I guess. I guess if you don't want to recruit them, instead of just want to be like, they think this smells, then great, if your goal is not recruitment. But also, it smells for normal people. And I think there comes a point where we need to look at our own tactics. It's one thing to be like, let's get rid of the Congress people, but it's another thing to be like, F your kids. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're dropping a nuke and half of the people who got hit were your people, and they have more people than you, no good. Like, I just think we have to look at tactics.
And I get it, but I'm doing that now. I'm actually dropping nukes and hitting some of my people because they can't get off of Javier Milei as like the second coming of Ron Paul.
Well, that's
okay. Apply for Nate. Like,
yeah. Point that they just need tough love. Like, I mean, I actually agree with Hody. Like, if I'm trying to do outreach to people who are new but maybe open to libertarianism, I try not to scare them away with like, with super scary messaging. I try to say, okay, hey, wouldn't it be great if, like, we weren't having 30% of what we make stolen so that we can make bombs to drop on people around the world?
And that's the other half. Just to be quick, like, we can't like have this message and simultaneously not go absolutely hard as fuck against Josh Eagle. Because if it's okay to say, if it's not okay to say, like, fuck your hoe ass cancer dad, then it's not okay to say that about the people who got like murdered in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's not okay to make light of that. It's not okay to ignore the surrounding conditions. When Josh Eagle and these Libby cucks are out here endorsing the neoliberal agenda and the NATO fucking bullshit, and saying we stand by the government and boosting McCain, fucking Cheney, Reagan, fucking fuck you. And also, let's be super clear here that the original image was fucking wrong. And Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, the handshake there, might be how certain communists, certain state communists who, kicked Bakunin out of the Union, proverbially speaking, and who continue to do that to this day, responded to fascism. But also, The handshakes could fucking so many pictures of Westerners shaking hands with the fascists, enabling the uprise of Nazi Germany and the fascist Axis powers, enabling the fascist Axis powers when they were still in, which is part of the reason fucking Fred Koch had his money to begin with. Enabling them after they got out. No, fuck you, Josh Ekel. They all did that. They all worked with fascists. And the liberals in your liberal government that were responsible for dropping the bomb, those people were also shaking hands with fascists, you unbelievable cuck. So when I'm talking about this, like, it's also like everybody's messaging sucks. Rose and then Bryce, if you want to chime in, you can. Just saying.
Oh, what was I saying? I was mostly thinking about the calling out, though, because I will say, there is kind of a culture of being afraid to call out people who are on, your team, because then, there's this concern that you're going to get lumped in, with, the enemy, the loser brigade, the saboteurs, whatever. That's always bothered me. Like, I think it is kind of an issue with, not just the Mises Caucus, but perhaps the wider Libertarian Party as a whole, where, you don't want to make waves by, saying, okay, I think this messaging could be better. I think this could be done differently.
Meanwhile, I'm over here being a fucking tsunami.
What was that?
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm over here being a fucking tsunami, like, all the time rocking boats. You've seen me. I just fucking go in there and wreck. Anyway, go ahead.
AP for Liberty and Josh Ekel. Well, Josh Ekel made a literal post for Liz Cheney. Like, there has to be some standard. I'm not saying the standard has to be ridiculous. If somebody says they believe in sales tax, okay, fine, we can have a discussion. But if you post like, Liz Cheney's just a nice person. She's just kind of working hard. Why are you so mean? And then I even told AP for Liberty, let's debate on, the Hiroshima thing. If you think you're correct, I have some evidence saying you're wrong. And he's just like, no one gives a crap about what you think. Or he sent me the Larry David meme. I'm like, whatever, okay, this is dumb. Like, we can have disagreements, but if you're a libertarian for NATO or using nuclear weapons on civilians, I think there is a line you can draw and be like, no.
Yeah, and like, that's the thing. Like, if you want to tell me, and you're right, to be clear, that we shouldn't talk about, like, dead trans people, killing black people, fucking all these things that are really objectively bad that will push people away. Maybe we also shouldn't take strong positions on, like, nuclear bombs, if anything, like, for the positive. Like, never claim to be a libertarian and support the use of nukes. Never. Because there is never a situation where the nuke will not have extremely negative, lasting knock-on effects. At the very dead level minimum, be neutral or shut the fuck up. If you're going to say that nukes are fine while a whole bunch of civilians initially died, and while the lasting damage and poisoning of the environment and contamination of food and famine and fucking forcing people onto the neoliberal program because in order to get U.S. help they had to, like, accept U.S. control, this is public record. Like, the U.S. basically cucked an entire country, and then the Trilateral Commission is a thing now where they dictate much of global policy. And so it's like, yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem when you can bomb a country into submission, because otherwise, like, you'll do it again, or otherwise, like, they don't have the wherewithal to repair their civilization. It's like ethnic cleansing. It's literally a Holocaust, literally burning people alive. But it's okay when we do it. It's okay when we put Japanese people in concentration camps, as long as they're not those people, It's like, we need to be real specific that the U.S. is no better than Nazi Germany, and claiming that this is how liberals behave and that that's a good thing? Go fuck yourself!
They're fucking CIA shills, okay? Like, I couldn't imagine more obvious plants.
Wouldn't
And,
surprise
yeah,
me, but I'm not going to say it
people
specifically.
want to, co-opt the party and ensure that it stays, completely neutered of its actual message and, it's completely non-threatening.
That's what Javier Milei's doing. They got Milei in. They said, "Ooh, look, an ANCAP." Everybody's like, "Oh my God, he's an ANCAP." Oh, he said he's pro-liberty. Oh, he went to CPAC. Cool. All right, well, he's in debt with the IMF. Oh, okay, Patricia Bullrich. Oh, well, that's fine. Okay, he takes every deep state foreign policy position. Not that I care so much about it, but okay. All right, now he's applying to NATO. It's like, and there's still people like, well, I think, it's a good strategic. I'm like, dude, if he's applying to NATO, like, is there a certain point where you say that, that's probably not what we want, like, libertarian at all? That's super neocon, if anything.
And of course, saying that it... Go.
The party for a long time. Like, it felt like there were way too many people in it who, dedicated to ensuring that it was pushing a very watered down, non-threatening version of libertarianism. One that, people would, who had just, become interested in the philosophy, they would, read what the Libertarian Party or outlets like Cato or Reason had to say and think that that was the correct libertarian message. They would never start advocating things like actually tearing down the entire monetary and banking system or actually completely dismantling the war machine. They would think that pushing things like, the Citizens United decision was a good thing, or that advocating, union busting was the correct libertarian position. So I guess that's kind of what I was getting at with claiming that the party was an embarrassment. It's not that individual people were doing a bad job. It's just that there were definitely some forces that seemed to be at work ensuring that it could never push, an actually, radical, subversive message.
Which is why John McAfee got the shaft, and why fucking Gary Johnson said the NAP goes over his head. Because that's what happens when you lose principle and when you don't want a radical message. I think John McAfee was excellent. I think that, it was a real shame that his campaign didn't... He was that guy. He was messaging to the every person. He was messaging to the person who wants things to be better and different and, wants things to be, understandable and, not treat them like shit because they're a minority or because they're, a business owner or a gun owner or a drug user or a sex worker or a... And he was that guy. And the Libertarian Party said we would rather have somebody more boilerplate. And so they basically froze him out. I saw those debates. I saw those conventions. Those were the last time I paid very, very, very close attention because I was considering not voting for McAfee. Like he said, don't, And if I ever I've actually been asked to run campaigns because people want me to be like that. And I might at some point. It's not off the table. But, the point is that, that's what we should be. We should be McAfee. That would be the bold messaging we need without sacrificing any principle and without becoming the kind of person that makes minorities walk away. Being the kind of person who says, shame on you, to that kind of person. McAfee was fucking excellent. And they squandered it. They squandered it. And, not only McAfee, but basically everybody else on stage was better than the people that they picked, except Peterson, who's a used car salesman, and I call him Peter Stain for a reason. There's options, and we should go with the better options, is my point. Because there are so many examples of people in this movement and party who have created problems for those of us who want consistency, loudness, the ability to call people out with courage. It's a significant problem. I'm not saying that everybody in the party is liable there, but I watched it happen. I watched people who were actively, engaged in, trying to say that we shouldn't have the more edgy person. We shouldn't have the person who's being more extreme in favor of liberty and opposed to the establishment. That was the last time I really got involved in politics, except to throw rocks from the sidelines watching obvious evil be opposed and be accepted and needed to be opposed. So like that's my position. Like, not that you did a bad job, Dennis, which you got your hand up. I'm assuming you want to speak, but like, you know, a significant amount of people did, and I watched it happen in the same way that, you know, Bernie Sanders got the shaft at his convention, in the same way that Ron Paul got the shaft at his convention. We saw that happen to McAfee. That was the real crystallizing moment when I gave up a lot of the ghosts and realized that these people are oftentimes involved in entrenched and highly funded, very invested, old money, blood money politics that interferes with their ability to process proper libertarian positions.
Well, I have a couple things.
Cool.
First is we did an interview with Arvin Borja in 2018, right after he had been basically ceremoniously tried to get kicked out of the LNC.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned that his goal, his idea, his view on messaging, and we all know the kind of messaging that he does. A lot of people say that is spicy, strong libertarian messaging that he was going with.
If you like Epstein, sure.
Yes.
He's like he did something on Veterans Day or something like that. It was really against all veterans and stuff like that because they participated in war, so he treated them all like shit, right? So that was the one that was really offensive to a lot of people. But when we talked to him, he said his goal was basically, I know I'm not going to reach 99% of the people. I just want to really reach the 1%. And I think that is a way bad way of looking at it, because I don't think you can sustain anything by just reaching out to the 1% of the people who would get your strong messaging. And this leads into my thing about messaging, is that you have to understand the audience that you're messaging to, right? A lot of the people we message to aren't steeped into the type of libertarian philosophies that we are right off the bat. They have to be brought in some way. And if you come at them too hard, they will you and never look at you again. You have to be careful about that. So I'm not saying we shouldn't be, strong in our messaging, but this is a good example. We believe as libertarians that we don't need a civil rights amendment. The government shouldn't be enforcing that. That should be something that society kind of handles on its own. But if you tell somebody we're against the civil rights amendment without explaining why, without having that base of understanding of why we do that, you come across a different way to them. So you have to understand what the people you're messaging to are going to see when you send that message out. And I think a lot of people have a problem with that. They think that they should be able just to say, this is a strong libertarian position, and put it out there without any follow-up, without any way to have that discussion, and it immediately turns people off, because the reality is that the vast majority of people in the country just want to make sure that when they wake up the next day, they still have a job, there's not a lot of chaos, they can still take care of their family, and they're going to be protected. That's all they care about, right? So if you start coming at them with messaging that's going to appear to be a very chaotic in nature and against what they're normally used to hearing, you're going to push them away and turn them away to the point you'll never be able to get them back. And I really think we have to be careful of that. I'm not saying we water down things. I'm not saying we do that. I think we focus on the things that we can message well with, take the opportunities when we can, and think about our messaging in a way of who the audience who might hear it are going to be. And that's how you get good messaging out. And I have a huge disagreement with someone who complains to be a great messaging person, but their messaging is terrible because all they're doing is talking about how trans people are groomers and everything else. I mean, it's just like he's full populist now. And it's like, you're going to approach and reach to a certain type of person with that messaging, but you're not going to reach the majority of people, because the majority of people are going to hear bigotry. Whether you think that you're espousing it or not, that's what they're going to hear. So I think that's the problem with messaging, is a lot of people don't do that thought process of what is the person hearing this going to think when they hear it.
Right. So
yeah, you need to pick your battles. which is why I focus so hard on things like, anti-war, anti-central banking. Okay, yeah, we should not be focusing on stupid shit like, oh, we don't need a civil rights amendment. Okay, even if that's technically true, yeah, okay. What are most people going to think you're talking about when you say that out loud? Or
But
it's
Rand
like
Paul did
arguing
that.
for driver's license, or
The perfect example, Rand Paul did that.
Healthcare is another one. Like, people do not know how to talk about the healthcare issue. Like, people will say, "Oh, we need, universal healthcare," and then libertarians will say something idiotic like, "Oh, so you want to enslave me and force me to pay for your healthcare?" No. That is not how most normal people think about. Or I'm saying, yeah, most normies. They don't think of taxes as, enslavement in the first place. As far as they know, they're already paying a ton in taxes, and it's going to, bailouts for rich people or whatever. So as far as they're concerned, we could totally fund healthcare, which technically, yes, that's true if the state actually wanted to provide it, but they won't. Like, okay, no, the current response to that is to start talking about how, why healthcare is so expensive in the first place, because we have things like certificate of need laws. We have laws passed specifically to benefit the insurance and hospital cartels. We have things like mutual aid societies that were deliberately legislated out of existence. So again, yeah, I could talk all day about bad messaging and how we should be approaching, these topics.
And like that's the other half is like, so yeah, you don't want universal health care. That's enslaving me to pay for your health care. But you do want a state-funded border with state-funded border agents and state-funded military coming back to state-funded police.
Yes, that's dumb too.
Yeah, and so and you also like you're all unleash the cops, and they're based for going against these protesters, and they're Malays based because these commies are getting what they deserve. Sal Mayweather, fucking no. In fact, we shouldn't be like that. We should be the better alternative to these statist brutalists. And if the Department of Defense would start to be the Department of Defense and not the Department of Offense, and base building and empire managing around the world, maybe they could take some of that money that's been going to the Department of Offense, and they could be like, not sending it to bomb houses. And maybe if they weren't doing that, these people would have their houses, and they wouldn't have to be migrants and fleeing their country and coming to ours. And maybe if they did that, they could have that money going to building places in America rather than tearing down places elsewhere. And maybe if we did that, instead of being fucking cucks for the establishment, things would be better. Instead of complaining about the welfare whore, which is a myth down the street, instead of complaining about nasty migrants and their disease and crime, despite the fact that they statistically commit less crimes than legal citizens because they're trying not to get fucking caught, maybe if you would start being more compassionate, maybe if you would stop being like identitarian, but for the straight, white, cis male identity, often also the fake Christian statist nationalist identity, all of these identities that you play identity politics with while you claim to hate the culture war, maybe there would be enough money to pay for health care and healing people from this world that is corrupted and killed and made them ill because they have been a subject of the state that has empowered these corporations, that have poisoned the air, the water, the everything, that have created the environments in workplaces that are full of like damage and disease, and war creates a whole lot of healthcare problems on its own. Maybe if we would stop being the problem, we would have enough money to fund the solution. But instead of being that libertarian, you're the I don't like brown people libertarian, you fucking cuck to the auth-right. Sorry.
So here's the issue. Even if it's not like the auth-right, here the problem is with that LPNH tweet. I do this thing where I follow, yes, the right libertarians and the Mises Caucus because I'm part of that, but then I also follow the left libertarians, whatever you want to call them, a bunch of leftists and like the pro-Palestine movement. And they, when they saw, cops should get, they're like, okay, can't state this. They're like, most libertarians in America are just, closet Republic or worse. I'm not gonna, closet, national. So I'm like, oh boy. So yeah, you get the messaging wrong a few times. Advocate for the police. I saw the video. It wasn't anything that crazy. It was like they had a sign, the police that pushing back, then pushing. It's not like a horrible NAP violation where like people are punching and kicking and throwing stuff. And when you say that, all the movement who on the left, like people that you could be allied with, now thinks, oh, well, weren't you the guy saying we should use police violence on campuses, and that this is not helping? Because I think to be honest, I think a lot of the libertarian right is good with theory, particularly Austrian theory, which is good. That's what makes economies work. I will say that. I like the idea of just like free markets. You should be allowed to pull up rocks in your backyard tomorrow and say, this is a pet rock. Here's $1,000, and make a landing page and have people buy it. Whether or not you think that's a good idea, I don't want to debate, but like, should be allowed to do that.
They cannot.
I mean, yeah, a dude made millions of dollars off of that, so maybe it's not a bad idea. But the problem is, I think we get so rooted in theory that when people take imperfect direct action, like, oh, he grew a garden, but or oh, he's doing this protest, but he's not the thing. I even had like discussions with libertarians on this, and I quoted Maltesta, like, well, this isn't a perfectly praxeological approach, and this isn't how I take direct action and all this, and these are just crazy leftists on campus. I'm like, well, what if they see that, or they're all Marxists? I'm like, so everybody there has read Karl Marx and Engels. They understand the Communist Manifesto. They understand it, and they agreed with it, and that's the only reason they're there, because they read Marx and Engels. Even though I find it interesting, because a lot of these people don't seem to have a political background. They don't seem to have even a background in any type of political science, but somehow they all read Marx and came together. Or it's just all funded by everything I don't like is funded by Soros. It's woke. It's a left wing thing. Yeah, it's all woke. It's just like, well, so Soros paid every single student to be there. Like, can you prove it? Like, no, well, no, but it's all Soros, it's all Karl Marx, it's all this. And I'm like, well, at what point does it come to, well, maybe there's some bad things going on in the world that people want to put attention to? And yeah, I don't agree with obviously attacking people or pulling signs. And yeah, I saw some bad stuff, but nothing anywhere remotely worse than like, there's no cities being burned down. There's no inherent violence that I see.
I object to, not really. And okay, and they're not even occupying private property, because those college campuses, per Rothbardian property rights theory, are not actually private. So yeah.
And then like the other half of it is like, maybe if we're going to talk about these issues, and if we're going to like side with anyone, it should be the underclass. Maybe those students are actually right, and maybe we shouldn't collectivize them in the name of opposing collectivism.
Yeah, or worse. I also think we're too entrenched in theory. We should take some direct action, which has been my problem too. I've been, because I used to think before COVID, I'm like, well, I got an online argument, and I quoted Rothbard, and I kind of won, and the guy stopped responding, like, who's a beast? And it doesn't matter. Like, you can throw theory all day. I think there are libertarians who just, they quote theory, and they're like, well, I quoted theory, it's all correct. And maybe some of it is pretty good. I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm not saying to not quote theory, but there is a point where you just put down the theory book and you go and be like, hey, I'm against nuclear, fighting with nuclear power. I'm against NATO. I'm against genocide. I'm against Zionism. All right, let's take a stand and do something.
Yeah, and that's the other half of this. Like, in my estimation, it's a real strong, and then we'll let Scott Forbes introduce himself and say what he wanted to say. We're going to wrap up soon. One of the things is, three things actually to get started. I think next time, one of the things that we'll do is we will address the absolute torrent of comments that have been coming up in chat from the previous thing that we didn't address, and from this one we pretty much got to none of them, but like I don't think we want to go another hour and a half to address all the comments thoroughly. So we'll do that next time. We'll address all of the chat comments from the previous one that we didn't get to, and all of the ones from now. That'll be part of it. It'll sort of be an audience thing.
Where are those chat comments?
It's on.
I'd like to read them later.
It's on YouTube. In the
on the YouTube
stream.
one.
Yeah.
So I can't see them.
And the other half of the thing is I think that's a great example of fascism in action, because these people are endorsing of fascists so much that they have to cuck to their mentalities, and that's a problem. They're so like anti-commie brained. They're so anti-left, anti-woke brained. They're so like basically fash pilled that when they see something like this, they're like, you know what? I feel like this enemy is simultaneously weak and strong, simultaneously responsible for everything wrong in the world, and also strong enough to be that, like insidious and evil enough to control everything, and also simultaneously look how weak they are. Look at the weakness their culture has produced. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. And we need a strong man so that we can deal with this weak culture that produces weakness, so that that strong man can create good times by stopping this weak culture. And we'll do that in order to say that these people who simultaneously control everything are so weak that we need our strong man to come in and strong this place up. And then that strong man is a fascist, because that's fascism. And so they say that about these people. They say, oh, it's Soros, and they're Marxists, and they're weak, and they don't know anything, and they're uneducated, and they don't know basic blah, blah, blah. They're fat and lazy, and they can't think, and blah, blah. And then also simultaneously, they control the world! Fuck you. Fuck you, you fascist piece of shit. That's my comment. And Scott, you really can say something if you want.
I mean, I got in so late. I would love to just drop a little leftist perspective.
Cool.
Like the Austrian school is clearly wrong, and it doesn't matter what theory is right. I think that we're seeing a growing disinterest in academic narratives, and a lot of people that are hungry, and the time for like debating which nuanced policy to pursue is long past. People are just going to start taking what they need because it's not being provided by the current system, whether or not that is in line with natural rights or not. And I also want to amplify something said just a moment ago, but was kind of woven throughout this section of the talk that I arrived late to, which is that there is nothing more cucked than needing a stronger man than you to step in and protect the things you care about.
Do it!
Like, absolutely. Like, the bordertarians, like any support for the cops is the most masculating position an individual can take, with respect to my non-masculine comrades as well. But, like, the second you open your mouth and say you need the cops or the military to do something for you, like, just hand over your dick, bro.
And also, just to be super clear, here's just to be super clear, here's a way to phrase what you just said. You can't eat books. You can't drink theory. You can't, like, get your health provided for by a live stream or a lecture series. It doesn't matter to the person who is starving or hurt or fucked how based you are in your head. They don't care. They're going to steal your bread.
Yeah.
I will say though, we're gonna have to do a discussion at some point about why he thinks the Austrian school is wrong. Because I personally think an understanding of Austrian econ is how you gain, an understanding of exactly how the monetary system that we live under is specifically designed to fuck us over. Why things like centralized inflationary fiat currency are, an instrument of class warfare designed specifically to impoverish us and keep us, perpetually in debt and open to being exploited.
Yeah.
So,
well, we'll discuss that. And Scott, it'll be 7 p.m. Eastern next time, so you can have an idea. where we'll start to like do the pre-show, and then like as soon as possible to that we'll get started on the show. We got started an hour late today, but like basically the show
Yeah,
will
that's
be
fine. I apologize for being so late. But...
no, it's you're fine, you're fine. The reason I was going to say that is because sorry, what? The internet fucked up. So what were you saying, Rose?
Oh no, yeah. No, I dropped him a link after we'd already started. Yeah. He doesn't need to apologize.
So
thank you guys.
And I'll shoot you a join link ASAP. I'll make sure to do that. We're hooked up on Disc.
Or add them to our Pan Anarchy group. But I think you don't use Facebook much anymore. So actually, Discord's fine too.
So
we can talk about it offline.
And then what I'll say also is like to be very specific, next week we're going to be hitting theory hard, and we're also going to be going over all the chat comments and trying to respond to every one of those. So it'll be sort of a Q&A-ish kind of thing, while also trying to address theory and speak to the people. So that one should be quite a bit more up the alley of that kind of talk. And I think we're getting close to wrapping as well. So what I'll say is, I guess let's take 2 minutes and we'll get a closing statement from everybody on the topics that we discussed today. Because I think we've basically said our piece in this regard. So let's start with Scott, actually, and then we'll go Kareem, Archie, Bryce, Dennis, Rose, Hody, and then I'll say something.
Sure. I mean, came in last, I'll close first. I think regardless of what economic theory you subscribe to, it's well within everybody's mutual aid. I think that the economic situation of the average person in this country and in this, around the world, but in this country in particular right now, in contrast to how it has been, is dire. And we should be feeding each other and providing for each other and caring for those in our communities who can't care for themselves. So engage with your community in whatever way fits your ethics best.
Oh, that's it?
That's all I got.
Well, you will have a shit ton more time to expound next week. Absolutely.
Oh, maybe.
Kareem.
All right. You can find me at Kareem6633 on Twitter. Been more active there. We'll be more active on Anarch Unity and hopefully building up the essential libertarians. And also support the students on campus. That's all I got.
Archie.
If there were more people in the party talking about voluntary mutual aid, the party would be better off. It is not only 100% compatible with Austrian economics to take your own resources and help people because you are compassionate and you see a very uncompassionate world, but it's exactly the message through action that we need to bring libertarianism to people, because action speaks louder than words.
Yeah, I would argue that it's even necessary. Bryce.
I mean, the primary topic that I wanted to touch on was talked about like 30, 40 minutes ago with the whole messaging stuff. There's like
take 4
going back
minutes.
to what's that?
Take 4 minutes, because you've said barely anything. I want to give you some time.
All right, so going back to like the happy birthday John McCain stuff. I mean, that's kind of a funny thing to like share among fellow libertarians because fuck John McCain, but from a messaging standpoint, I can understand where that's probably going to turn some people off because, like, regardless of how you may feel about him, he's a piece of shit sociopath and glad he's gone. But to political normies, they're going to be like, whoa, what the fuck is wrong with you? This is literally the day he fucking died. That's going to turn him off. So there's like, there's room to be like more of a provocateur, but stuff like that is probably something that should be more focused, like just share among each other, like haha, fuck him, type shit. As far as the whole voluntary mutual aid shit, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree that is absolutely essential. Honestly should be part of the Libertarian Party's fucking platform. I feel like it would be a lot easier to recruit people if that was in there.
Was that it?
That's it.
You got a place you want to be found? Something you want to promote?
Nah, I don't really have anything to plug right now.
All right. Well, if you ever do, feel free to do it during one of these streams. Dennis.
Real quick, you can find me at Reinhold at just about anything. But the one thing I want to mention too, real quick, is kind of my guidelines on where the limits are on that messaging and being provocative. One, I have a strong reaction to people dying, and even people I don't like, people I hate. I mean, if Trump were to die tomorrow, I would still feel sad about it. I still would mourn the fact that a person has died. I still would rather try to convert them and make them better people while they're still alive, right? So that's always something that's kind of gets me at least give a day or two after somebody dies that you don't like to just let people grieve. You know, that's kind of my personal philosophy on that. And in regards to there's a rule in satire that if you're punching down, if you're punching the people who are oppressed, if you're punching down and damaging people who are or making fun of people who are the minorities are hurt or under the thumb of other people, then it's not satire. It's just being mean and cruel. And that's one thing I think we can also take into our messaging too, is making sure we're not attacking those types of people. So when I see these people attacking trans people or black people or gay, you know, you got that's punching down. That's really, I think, a bad form of messaging. So I kind of take those same rules. So that's just my take on it. So other mileage may vary.
Rose.
Okay, well, yeah, I would like to agree with Archie about the mutual aid. Like, I think, one of the main purposes of the party should be, for networking, so that we can get more involved on the local level and things like mutual aid and community building, and start implementing things like skill sharing networks or other types of counter economics. I also, think that, as far as parties go, like there is still room for people who would like to run for office on the local level for the purpose of nullification, because I think nullification can definitely be used in conjunction with the agarist strategy. That's just my thoughts on the party. I think the party can be for networking and for recruiting people who may be like-minded. Anyway, with that, I would like to invite my fans, to donate to my GoFundMe to help me get to the convention at the end of May. And that's about it. I think everyone by now knows where to find me.
Yeah, feel free to post that in the comments as well.
Last time I think it got deleted as spam, but
in the comments on Facebook?
Oh, yeah. Facebook, I can do that.
Yeah, and I'll post a link in the description, because I might as well.
Thank you.
Hody.
I think everybody's had the experience of watching a show.
You're sort of breaking up.
I'm sorry. I wish I wasn't breaking up.
I think that's clear.
I sound okay?
No, you should.
I'm not trying to do anything. I'm sorry if my internet's not holding up. I think everybody's had the experience of reading a book or watching a TV show or movie where the author does not know who they are. I know for me as a Christian, when like the writers of Family Guy or The Simpsons attempt to depict Christians, they do a really bad job of it. And that's upsetting. I think everybody has read like a male, like if you're a female and you've read a book by a male author where you're like, this guy cannot write females. Like they just have no idea what they're doing. When we talk to recovering addicts and we put them in situations where they can succeed, Do we surround them with people who have never done drugs, or do we surround them with people who understand that journey, who have made that journey before, and who are recovering from doing drugs? It's obviously the latter. Everybody knows. You can feel the difference in somebody's compassion for you when you say, I've taken this journey before, I understand. With somebody like me, I've never been addicted to drugs. I am extremely, like, I don't want to say I am extremely, because I try to be compassionate, but I lack that personal experience to be compassionate, you know, like to be as compassionate as I want to be. And so this is a job that's best left to somebody else. So when we talk about recruitment tactics, let's maybe be a little more pointed. What we're doing right now is talking generally. When we message to the world, well, yeah, it's going to be a little generic and watered down a little bit. When we message to people specifically, we have an opportunity to understand who they are. My goal is never to kick people out or downsize. I want to recruit. I want to change. I want to evangelize. I want people to get better. When I do missionary trips to Europe, do I want to lead with about how drunkenness is a sin? No, there's a lot of value in drunkenness over there in the cultural level. It's a value, like, and it's going to come up in conflict. But I don't lead with the least appealing part of my faith in order to talk to them, right? Like, I don't lead with a challenge that they're going to struggle with. What I want to do is just be like, hey, boy, I really don't like this war stuff, right? That seems pretty bad. Or, hey, this guy over here is suffering. I wish I could help him, right? Like, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that libertarians pass up on an awful lot. We need to be more direct and focused with our messaging. There are entire personality groups that are largely libertarian. And the thing is we keep doing the same messaging that appeals to those same people. And we're not getting more people because they're already libertarians. And that's great. And I'm not saying to do necessarily less work on that. We want to keep those people as established libertarians. We want to keep being able to feed people, you know, Rothbard and Mises and Bastiat and the more modern stuff. We want to feed people, you know, Konkin and whatnot. That's great philosophy. And if you can be converted to liberty because of it, there's a good chance you have been. And if you haven't been, you're just a book away, like real easy. The trouble that we're having is, like, of all the personality types, there's like 13 of them that libertarians just go, oh, yeah, well, F your traditions. Or, oh, yeah, we'll F you extroverts. Like, you know, and it's just, that's never going to work. It's part of their personality. The way we are going to win is by appealing to all the personality types and not just writing off some of them entirely. I understand, because I am part of that personality type that is naturally conditioned to be a libertarian, is naturally conditioned to be an anarchist. I love logical arguments. I don't get it when I read a book, and I just read one recently about these libertarians and their logicism think it can change everybody. And I'm just like, how does it not change everybody? But it doesn't. And so the fact is I can either live in a fantasy land where eventually I will logic everybody to death and they will believe me. But ultimately, this isn't a chess game. This is a popular vote. And I am not going to go out and just being like, I'm the best chess master out there, do what I do. Ultimately, what I have to do is make chess look sexy. And that's okay. We libertarians can do that. We just need to actually focus on people who are sexy to make it look sexy. Not just spice with courage, spice with some backbone, spice with intelligence. You know, we can go out and make that kind of splash if we choose to do it. I guarantee if there's somebody you know in life who is struggling, who is lonely, who is not finding what they need in this era of bowling alone, in these areas of social media groups that increasingly make us feel isolated, you deciding to be part of somebody's life is going to have a huge impact on them. Now, if you need to tell yourself that it's because of politics and you want to convert them politically, fine, I guess. But I encourage you to actually make a genuine connection with more. I love, and I think it was Kareem who said it earlier. I can't remember. Somebody said it earlier. But we change ideas by doing the work, by going out and being active. We are so good about preaching what the message is, when in reality, I follow Christ. And I'll do my plug now. Love First Christians. If you want an invite, please, I am Hody Johns. Just ask me. We're expanding massively. Thank you again, Jeremy, for letting us use this, for letting me use this platform and speak to people. It's been a lot of people have been curious. So if you're like, oh, that Christian guy sounds interesting, you are not alone. And there's a lot of people who are excited about a new Christian movement. Anyway, that I follow a Christ who was like, hey, I'm not even going to discuss scripture with the people. I'm just going to feed them. I'm just going to give them stuff. I'm just going to clothe them. I'm just going to make sure they're okay. If you do that, there are huge swaths of this population that will go, can you tell me what you believe? Because I like you. Because I like what you do for me in my life. Maybe that's not the way philosophy is supposed to work in actuality. I get it. As a left brain, logic-based person, I get that. But it works. And ultimately, do we want to do what works? Or do we just want to keep being right and insignificant? And I would rather do something that works. We don't have to sacrifice being right. We can be right and functional. It's just going to take a little more effort from us. And I think that's okay. I think we should all be excited about that effort. Thanks so much.
And for my closing statement, what I'll say is this. I got involved in libertarian politics like, you know, probably a decade and a half ago now. And it's been a downhill slope of hating it more and more ever since. Mostly the politics end of it. The saving grace, in my view, of all of this shit is direct action. When I was running a table for young Americans, the saving grace of all this, in my view, is direct action. When I was running a table for Young Americans for Liberty, I wasn't reaching people. When I was showing them the world's smallest political quiz, I wasn't reaching people. When I was telling them that they should read, economics in one lesson, or basic economics, as though their understanding was so minuscule that they needed a primer on it, that wasn't reaching people. When I was, doing the YAL shit of, there was this thing, it was so ridiculous, that I don't even remember what the fucking point of it was, where I was doing this thing called bear pong. And what that is it's a large beach ball, and you're supposed to throw this large beach ball into buckets that are empty. And the point is that this is like beer pong, but with no beer. So you can do it on a college campus, and you can also do it outside your table to have fun and to attract people to come learn about economics. Sorry, my internet's fucking up a lot. To have fun and to attract people to learn about economics. It didn't work, and it was really windy where I lived, so the ball would it doesn't. But the point is that it was all stupid. It was all stupid because A, it was a fascist-funded organization. The fascist funding that started the Koch family off trickled down. And the funding and the organizational structure of all of these conservative organizations that libertarians consistently cuck to trickles down. Every single time it trickles down. And as long as we choose these as our allies, as long as we choose people as our allies who we have to have fundamental compromise with in order to get anything done with them at all, we'll lose. And so my message is that we need to find ways, party or not, where we're not compromising anything. We have to find ways, like hyper-civil or not, where we're not compromising anything. And as long as we're still compromising, as long as we still have to compromise our principles so as not to rock the boat, because we don't want to talk to that guy, so that we don't, offend like some member of our constituency by saying the truth, so that we don't, lose a donor, lose a sponsor, lose an event, lose a connection. We will fail. But also, if we compromise with the groups of people that already hold the reins of power, which is the authoritarian right, we will lose more people than that we would have otherwise gotten by taking a more broad-based position and being more accepting and reasonable and caring and less hostile to minorities, for instance, and the global south. And when we end up in these mentalities where, like, we have sacrificed for so long on the altar of like getting organizational support, getting establishment support, so that we can get the support of people like the Koch family and a bunch of other right-wing affiliated organizations. And then when we get down to brass tacks, the other people that we, could be getting on board, we've spent so much time cucking to this group of people that now, in order to keep any of them, while still getting the radical messaging, we now have to take a radical capitalist approach, even endorsing people like Radcap Chase and Cantwell and whoever else is on the right who happens to be saying the same like capitalist nonsense the Libertarian Party wants to parrot at the moment. Like, when that becomes the thing, you've spent so long hammering one group, so long promoting capitalism, so long promoting right-wing mentalities as your exclusive mentality, that you can no longer reach out to the people who you might be able to reach now that they are the ones under an extreme level of duress, an extreme level of attack. The productivity gap is higher than ever. The rent and income gap is higher than ever. Food prices are higher than ever. Things are fucked and getting more fucked, and we cannot be fucked to unfuck ourselves long enough to fuck the real fuckers who need fucking. That's my message. And so, when we get down to brass tacks, these people have gotten us to hate our fellow man so that we don't hate them, to act against our fellow man so that we don't act against them, or, woman, non-binary. And when we don't isolate our strength and power against the system because we're isolating it against our fellow person for epic owns on the interwebs, congratulations, you got your dopamine, you fucking cunt. That's my thing. My thing is we are enabling fascism in the name of liberty, and we need to recognize that principles are the cornerstone or we're fucked. And so we need to get back to a place. I remember, I think it was Roderick Long. I was at a YAL conference, and he got on stage. I think it was him. And he said he's a left libertarian, representing people like C4SS. And the room fell silent because they were on that page. I felt that silence, and it created a starter pack of dissonance in me for why are these people so opposed to this guy? He's saying pretty good things. This is bad. Why is this bad? And it started me on my sort of journey to accepting the left. And it's a good journey to go on. Accept people on your working class level, understand the real enemy, and stop pointing your barrels at each other because the motherfuckers at the top of the ivory towers are not down here with us! That's my message. So, that being said, everybody else has already said their piece. I'll just say smash the fucking state. Cool.